Good evening. I hereby call this meeting to order. Can everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Thank you. Now, just a little business we've got to take care of. It's time for the consent agenda. Motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second? Christina has a second. All in favor? That is unanimous. I love those unanimous votes.
Who's up? All right.
Okay. Is Cody there? He's
Yeah,
good?
no, he did.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm here.
Okay.
No, I looked back.
I forgot to check for you. Sorry, Cody. Okay, I understand there are board members that are retiring and there's a BOE members recognition this evening. So for all those retiring members, I believe there's a few people who want to say some things, and I believe Fred Camillo, you're up first, our first selectman. Here he
Oh my
is.
God,
He's
he's
right
not-
there. He's right there. He's coming up. The budget for those.
You will soon. This place will be brand new. Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here to salute two of the retiring members. And Joe, since Downey comes before Kelly, and since we're closer to Columbus Day past than we are to St. Pat's, I got to go with Christina, who's half Italian. Christina, congratulations on all your work and best of luck to you and all your future endeavors. You've done a great job. You've always done it with a smile. Even when you were against some of my budget items at some of those meetings, you did it with a smile. And I did appreciate that. Thank you very much. Prego. Whereas Christina Downey is being recognized for all her service to the town of Greenwich Public Schools during her 4-year term as a member of the Board of Education. And whereas Christina has faithfully served the residents of Greenwich and the Greenwich Public Schools in this volunteer role, giving her time and hard work to benefit students. And whereas Christina has served the Board of Education as vice chair during the 2022-2023 school year. And whereas Christina served on the Policy Governance Committee, including 2 years as its chair. And whereas Christina served on the Board of Education's Budget Committee and Negotiations Committee, including 1 year as chair, 1 year as chair for each, I should say, where she put in long hours as a volunteer. And whereas Christina served on the GHS Vestibule Building Committee and is now stepping away from the Board of Education at the end of this term. Now, therefore, I, Fred Camillo, the first selectman of the town of Greenwich, do hereby proclaim October 21st, 2023 as Christina Downey Day in the town of Greenwich and urge all our residents to join me in recognizing Christina's contributions to our town. Again, Christina, thank you so much and God bless. Not Saturday. Great job. Now, Joe, about 37 years ago, Joe went into the Golden Gloves, and then he said he retired. And then he made 37 years, and he comes back later. And then he was a coach and retired there. So maybe in a couple of decades, you'll be back here, you think? Maybe. You're still young enough. Joe's been a great champion for lots of things, including getting that high school stadium started. Looks beautiful. I know we're not done yet, but it was talked about for a long time, and Joe brought it along there. So you did a lot of great work, and you faced a lot of headwinds there, but you got it done. So we really appreciate that and all your work, and as chair. Whereas Joe Kelly is being recognized for his service and many contributions to our public schools during his 4-year term as a member of the Greenwich Board of Education. And whereas Joe has faithfully served the residents of Greenwich and the Greenwich Public Schools, first as a coach and mentor, and then as a member of the Board of Education. How many state championships? 10. I'm not counting, but 10. And whereas Joe served as Board of Education chair in the 2022-2023 school year, and whereas Joe served as the BOE's negotiation committee, including two years as the committee's chair. And whereas Joe served on the Cardinal Stadium Committee, where he did such a great job, and whereas Joe served on the JC School Building Committee and the Budget Committee, and after all those many contributions, he's finally stepping off the Board of Ed after the current term. Now, therefore, I, Fred Camillo, the first selectman of the town of Greenwich, do hereby proclaim October 19th, 2023 as Joe Kelly Day in the town of Greenwich, and urge all our residents to join me in recognizing the coaches' contributions to our town. Congratulations, Joe, and best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. My pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
I did mine on the Saturday. Show. Way more fun.
Ryan Fazio, State Senator. I can't believe you're here. That's great. Thank you. And Hector. Hector's coming up too. Fantastic.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here, and it's certainly somewhat bittersweet to bid farewell to the two leaders on our Board of Education, who presided over many challenges for the town, but always done so with comedy and with respect and civility in difficult times. Our Vice Chair, Christina Downey, is widely known not only by her colleagues, but her constituents for being thoughtful and intelligent and studied, and a bipartisan constructive member of this Board of Education, and she'll certainly be missed. And Joe Kelly, Coach Kelly, Chairman Kelly, we saw him come out of retirement in the ring recently, and I was shocked. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was shocked to see how much he led with his chin. And but again, it should have been fitting, seeing how sometimes things go for him in public service. But like Christina, you can tell how much Joe loves this town, loves this community. They've both volunteered for years. Christina as an advisor to kids applying to college on the PTAs, and Joe as a coach, and running for office, not just the Board of Ed. I'm lucky to call them friends. Joe is Joe's given so much to this town, and I'm very proud to present them with citations on behalf of the entire Greenwich delegation. I'll read them briefly, but the General Assembly official citation introduced by Senator Ryan Fazio, Representative Steve Meskers, Representative Hector Arzano, Representative Rachel Khanna. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to Joe Kelly and its sincerest congratulations to Christina Downey in recognition of their years of service to our town and its education system. The future of Greenwich is brighter because of the work that you have done. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. Signed by the President Pro Tem, the Speaker of the House, and the Secretary of the State of Connecticut. Congratulations, and we wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and Hector obviously needs to.
May I
Of course.
say some words?
It's yours.
Well, Joe and Christina, number one, Steve and Rachel regret very much not being here. Steve is in RTM meeting, and Rachel had a transportation committee meeting that she committed to attend. And I know that they had been 2 very challenging years, to say the least. And I particularly enjoy the private conversations we had. We share and have in common many values and principles. You both led a difficult negotiation with the teachers' union last year, and on top, I witnessed many aggravations that you went through. And you stood high and firm. I admire you for that, and I supported your work, convinced that it was a good and fair negotiation. And a good negotiation is the one where both parties stand up and shake hands, no winners and losers. That is not a good negotiation. Probably you might feel that you are stepping down, not having achieved all your goals and dreams, not having the construction of a new central middle school up and running, as well as the renovation of the old Greenwich Elementary. And I'm saying this because it's the way that I would feel if I would be in your shoes. But let me say here in public that the 3 state reps from Greenwich, Kana, Meskers, and myself, that stood up, spoke in many different meetings, including the one this week at the Planning and Zoning, will move heaven and earth in Hartford to be sure that the state contribution for those buildings will be granted. You both can rest assured of this, and your next chapter in life, we will be there for you.
Thank you, guys. That was cool. Jen Ben, you're up. And it's good because you're representing GOSA. I ran those negotiations and I never figured out what GOSA meant. Maybe you can tell me what that even means.
I will tell you tonight. Good evening, Dr. Jones, Chair Kelly, members of the board and guests. My name is Jen Bensavengo, and I am the proud principal of Old Greenwich School. And although for the last several years I've attended your mid-October meeting requesting a birthday present of a fully funded school, I'm honored to be here tonight on behalf of David Walco and the members of the Greenwich Organization of School Administrators, GOSA, to recognize the unending dedication of Joe Kelly and Christina Downey. I'm sure when you ran for election many moons ago, you did not anticipate experiencing a global pandemic, ceilings falling, walls separating, sewage seeping, and championing endless budget battles. But you also had the unique honor of experiencing celebrations of some of the most talented students, teachers, and administrators in the country. Countless state champion athletes, artists, musicians, distinguished teachers and administrators, community service leaders, mathematicians, scholars, and Andy Bramante scientists whose projects I can't pronounce, but take my breath away. Your friends in GOSA would like to thank you for your gifts of time and talent to our schools, students, and staff. You both speak passionately about the education we provide children in Greenwich and are two of our fiercest supporters. Thank you for your guidance, your support, and your friendship. And on behalf of my colleagues in administration, we thank you for being our partners in the great work we all do for the children and family of Greenwich. We know you will have Thursday nights off for the foreseeable future and hope you'll enjoy dinner on GOSA as our gift to you. And while I'm here, and since my birthday is Saturday, your day, if you could get OG and CMS fully funded before you're all done, we'd all appreciate it. My best to you both. Thank you.
29 again? And Lil has not arrived yet, has she?
No.
Nope. I think she said she's going to boycott because of me, not because of you, Christina, because of me. Yes, no, she's
reffing.
She's reffing and she'll be here shortly. So she'll speak twice a little later on. John, you're up. John Fisher, PTAC. The visual aids again. Here we go.
Yes. Visual aids. I need that to stay there. For those who don't know, I'm John Fisher. I'm the president of the Greenwich PTA Council. And while I've shared these comments with the PTAC board, I do want to spare them the embarrassment. And I want to ensure that they have credible deniability. So let me just say these are my own personal words. When Michael Antonasio alerted me to this this recognition, and let me know that this was going to be the last time I'd be able to stand up here with you all sitting there, and that I could say a few words. Well, it made me think, what could I possibly say about these two in public? And then I remembered the BAFO CCC framework. Now, a lot of people will know that BAFO stands for or means extremely successful and sensational. Everybody okay? Yeah. extremely successful and sensational. But some people might have forgotten the BOFO CCC framework from your training. So I'd like to just remind everyone, and we'll review here.
Thank you.
So Joe and Christina have both shown bodacious optimism about our great school system. And they've done they've shown bodacious optimism in spite of so many challenges and difficulties that would make lesser people cringe. Both Joe and Christina have maintained focus on continuously improving a broad, holistic educational experience to prepare our students for success in real life. Both Christina and Joe have also followed the BOFO framework's guidelines on being flamboyant but firm in pursuing success. Joe, admittedly, is the more flamboyant side of that, while Christina is the understated but firm side of that. And of course, the BOFO framework calls for keeping your eye on the objectives. And both Joe and Christina have been steadfast in pursuit of the main objective of the board, which is to always be champions for the schools and the kids. And we appreciate that. And that brings us to the CCC part of the BOFO CCC framework. Under Chair Kelly and Vice Chair Downey, the board has set an example for every other board in this town. Under Chair Kelly and Vice Chair Christina Downey, this BOFO board here, all of you have functioned with collegiality, collaboration, and consensus. And while we'll miss Joe Kelly and Christina Downey, we expect that the BOE, all of the remaining members of the BOE, will continue this legacy of collegiality, collaboration, and consensus as a tribute to Joe and Christina. We were going to get some really special mementos for both of you, but we were afraid that we would violate the BOE's rules on giving anything of any real value. And so we have prepared for you these BOFO certificates.
Excellent.
And this is to certify that Joe Kelly and Christina Downey have successfully demonstrated being BOFO while leading a fully functional Board of Education with collegiality, collaboration, and consensus. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. BOFO, a lifelong aspiration filled.
There you go.
Thank you, John. That is excellent. Dr. Jones, it's time for you to say a few words. Thank you.
Follow that. I don't know. Is it on? Oh, so let me just say, first of all, John, I think you hit the nail on the head in describing the two of these wonderful board members. On behalf of the district, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you. I don't think people realize when you step into the chair and vice chair, how many hours it's way beyond these meetings. Daily phone calls, texts, the time that you spend to lead the district and to get us to the point where we have an agenda where we can have a collaborative process. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And I just, it's hard enough to have 8 bosses, which I have, but the two of you have been absolutely terrific and you've worked well together. And as a school superintendent, I couldn't ask for anything more. And so thank you for all that you've done for the school district. Look forward to seeing you around town, waving in the parades, all that fun stuff. So thank you.
Kathleen with that extra syllable, Kathleen. Yes.
Okay, it's been a while since I've stood over here. Hold on. Okay. All right, I had to write this because I couldn't forget anything. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm truly honored to be talking about my colleagues as they retire from the Board of Ed. Joe and Christina have become friends, and I feel lucky to have shared this role with them. I always found both of their perspectives insightful. With 7 GPS children between them, they recognize and appreciate the seriousness of this role and the impact they have on our students, but also knew when to interject a moment of levity, which is certainly required at times. I will talk about them both a bit individually, but first congratulate them for being the chair vice chair team that they were. They both give more than their fair share, both serving and chairing too many committees to count, and both volunteering on building committees as well. However, I think it's worth noting that this job is more than just your individual commitment. It's something your family buys into and supports. And so I reached out to each of your spouses for a thought or two. Stay tuned. Joe, I feel like roasting you, which I know you're open to at your birthday parties, but it feels like this might not be the right forum. I did not know you when you joined the board, although your reputation, of course, preceded you. But I remember like yesterday when we went out for coffee at that Starbucks right across from Havemeyer 4 years ago. I immediately appreciated your openness and enthusiasm. I'm sure everyone appreciates your boundless energy, but to maintain that enthusiasm in any job, but especially this job, is valuable and impressive. I can go on and on about your professional accomplishments as an investor and your community accomplishments, especially your legacy as a rugby coach. But what I might most appreciate is your willingness to roll up your sleeves. Whether it's helping to get the stadium fixed, pull some weeds, or get a teacher contract negotiated, you give it your all and do it with a smile. Specifically, having also served as chair, you run a great meeting. You know when to let the conversation continue and when it's time to manage the team toward a conclusion before the night strikes midnight. I know you also value building consensus like I do, and that was evident. So I thank you. So I reached out to Jill and to see if she wanted to add her perspective on your time on the board and or share any thoughts. And I quote, "I'm not sure what to give you to mention. You actually spent more time with him than I did these last 4 years." I'm sure you'll have plenty of good things to say. So she kind of left me on my own, end quote. Well, that says it. The volunteer job is 110%, and you treated it with the dedication it deserved. Your balance will be missed, but I know you will find a way to continue to serve this wonderful community. Christina, you've become a friend and an ad hoc guidance counselor to me. I still remember when I first met you for coffee, which we all know all I do is drink coffee, so that's a theme here, when you were looking to run for the board. And I immediately thought, how have I lived in Greenwich for over a decade and never met this cool mom, this professional, this volunteer? Your resume is long, both professionally and as a community leader. You started volunteering for GPS in 1999. When your oldest child started in GPS, you served as the president of Riverside PTA, on the board of the GHS PTA, Junior League PTAC treasurer, RTM, where hopefully you will return. You too worked tirelessly for Greenwich. As leader of our caucus, you knew how to keep us on task, informed, but also had a way of always providing perspective and seeing the sides of all arguments. In short, you managed us. I am truly not sure how this board will ever deliver a motion again. Seriously. It seems simple, but it's like a great tennis player. Only when Christina writes it does it work. So I could go on and on, but I need to share your husband's wisdom. Some things the Downies learned while Christina was on the Board of Education. I think maybe he actually talked to your kids. So I think this was like a holistic thing. For 4 years, family vacations come second to Board of Ed meetings. We can't wait to have a 2-week long vacation in September or October next year. Make sure your iPhone and AirPods are 100% charged at all times to deal with all the calls Board of Ed members can be on the phone hours a day. This is an unpaid position, but being able to go to GHS graduation and wear a robe and help give out diplomas is pretty close to good compensation. We are glad Christina does yoga regularly. Board of Ed members need to be flexible. The issues that confront Board of Education members are varied and totally unexpected. A member needs to be prepared for almost anything. And similarly, The administration and the teachers deal with even more issues, complex and numerous, every day as they manage the educational lives of thousands of students. We all ought to give them the benefit of the doubt whenever possible. And his last bullet was Joe Kelly and Christina consistently managed to work together with humor and affection, despite the sometimes deeply held disagreements that they each had about certain matters. I think that says it all. We can differ in our views, but this was a great team. And I hope we can all move forward and continue to exemplify many of the skills both of you did. You will both be very missed. So with that, this is an engraved bell.
Bell,
It's engraved like school bell.
how cool is that?
Yeah. I didn't pay for this. This is a gift from the Board of
Oh,
Education.
cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize to all of you who had to sit through that. I do, it makes me feel very uncomfortable to be spoken of in that way. I'd rather be made fun of, but it's not appropriate to be made fun of in such a atmosphere. So,
Public comment is.
public, yeah, we'll save that. For good point. Thank you. So thank you all for sitting through that. And thank you all for the kind words said to both of us. Christina, you want to say something to everybody?
Well, spontaneous. This has been people ask you to say, do you enjoy serving in the Board of Ed? I'm like, enjoy is kind of an interesting choice of words. There are moments of enjoyment, but I feel, and I think, Joe, you probably will agree, as we agree on a lot of things, I think I feel really proud of the work I've done for the last 4 years. I feel invested even more so, notwithstanding no kids in the schools the entire time I've been doing this. I'm going to miss it. Parts of it I won't miss, not gonna lie, like these late night meetings when we have them, but I'm happy that I've done it and hope I've made a positive contribution.
I enjoyed working with you, Christina. Thank you. And I'll just be brief. I literally got 10 times out of it what I put into it, and I put a lot into it. So that means I got a heck of a lot out of it. So thank you, everybody, for working with us. And that being said, one of the things I got or made me get the most satisfaction was working with the student government at the high school. It was really exciting to sit in those meetings with these young leaders at our school, and we have the lovely opportunity now during the public hearing session of our meeting now to hear from them. Now, if you wait 1 second, I do want to describe something. There is an action item later on in the meeting that's described as student government. It is described as student government. Where did that go? Request. What we asked for, and I used the student government meeting as a learning opportunity for the kids. We said, myself and Karen, who both go to those meetings, we said, listen, the most important feedback we can get is from the student government. Second most is the students. Third is the parents and the teachers and all that sort of stuff. So basically what we said is the most important information we can get, and emails are the student government who represent many of those students. And that's, we want to make sure that we hear their voices. We didn't get a lot of emails to no fault of them because they've got a lot going on, our students nowadays. So what I did is I put a challenge to them. I said, listen, I am going to fast track a request. I'm going to put it as an agenda item, as an action item. So I said, what I want you guys to do is come up with something, a request, an ask. So they're asking us as a Board of Ed, they're asking us to do something for them. So what they're going to do is I'm going to put it forward. I'm going to put a motion to approve their later on in the action item time, a motion to approve. Hopefully somebody will second it, and they're going to explain what their ask is. And this board will either approve it or we'll turn it down. But the thing is, you're going to see from the suggestion to coming straight to the Board of Ed to making it an actual item that we approve, which means it's implemented. So I'm excited about hearing that. So now, Omar, time for you to come up and speak as our student body vice president. You know what? Can you hold on 1 second? All right. Karen wants me to let Lil come up and speak if she's prepared. Are you catching your breath? You want to take a second? All right. Come on, Omar, you're up. Sorry. All right.
We'll do it all at once.
Come on up and do your fabulous speech.
The mic is on. Okay. Good evening, Chairman Kelly, Dr. Jones, and members of the board. My name is Omar Galal, and I'm the Student Body Vice President at GHS. The school year has kicked off and spirit is high at GHS. Just last week was our homecoming week. On October 7th, the homecoming dance was held in the gymnasium. This year was the first time in a few years where the dance was not held in the student center, but the gym. And the change in venue did not take away from the event's success. In fact, some students felt that the gym was a more fitting place for the dance to be held. Following the dance, we had PJ Day and International Day, where GHS students wore all sorts of flags over their shoulders just as proudly as they wore their plaid pants, pajama pants, and slippers. Senior Dress-Up Day was an exciting day at GHS. Among others, there were groups of Marios, traffic cones, and Guy Furies. On Friday, we had our first pep rally of the year, where we celebrated our athletics teams and emphasized school spirit. And finally, last Saturday, our varsity football team triumphed in their homecoming match against Darien. The dreary weather did not stop our Cardinal crazies from packing in and pinking out the Cardinal Stadium, which was an encouraging show of school spirit. XCOM has discussed and reflected on the school spirit coming from that homecoming week. And while there were many highlights, we feel that there were some areas where we should look to improve for future spirit weeks. For instance, social media was largely underutilized in communicating themes to the student body, and we plan to strengthen our outreach in the future. Seniors at GHS are currently amidst their early decision college admissions. A few days ago was the October 15th deadline, and the November 1st deadline is steadily approaching. In the past few weeks, many colleges have visited GHS to give information sessions, and last Thursday was our annual college fair. Similarly to the homecoming dance, the college fair was moved from the from the student center to the gymnasium, but it was successful nonetheless. This is a very stressful period for many seniors. I know this firsthand. So if you know anyone who may be in their application process, feel free to give them some words of encouragement and maybe a good pat on the back. I have a few class updates or grade-wide updates. The senior class recently organized a fundraiser with Pizza Post and are looking to plan a movie night. The junior class has focused a lot of time into connecting juniors with volunteer opportunities. This was a primary goal of the junior class president this year. And the sophomores are organizing a Halloween-themed fundraiser, which would be good for school spirit. Before I yield my time, I'd like to speak on student government's policymaking, which was briefly introduced by Mr. Kelly. As we've kicked off the year, Caleb and I have been placing heavy emphasis on student government's ability to brainstorm and initiate policy changes. That is student government as a whole, not just Caleb and I. We have distributed policy proposal templates to both the members of the executive committee as well as all of our class representatives. Moreover, we've developed a list of initiatives that we consider to be valuable to improving student life at GHS, and I'm excited to share that we have brought one of those initiatives to tonight's meeting. So without further ado, I would like to thank the board for this time to speak, congratulate Mr. Kelly and Ms. Downey, and pass the mic over to our student body president, Caleb Kaland, who will speak more to this initiative. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Kelly, Dr. Jones, and members of the board. I am Caleb Kaland, the student body president of Greenwich High School. Tonight, I want to speak with you about a new request for the Board of Education to consider, and then share updates pertaining to our student government policies at Greenwich High School. Given this opportunity to present the board with new ideas, Omar and I will continue to utilize this to consider additional changes to come. For this meeting, one thing we would love for the board to consider is researching and implementing scanners for our new digital IDs so that the process to pay for food is expedited in the Cardinal Cafe. Student government sees the potential to not only increase usage of the Minga app for school IDs, but also for new ways to utilize this technology every day. Omar and I look forward to discussing this agenda item with you all later this meeting. This month, freshman class officer elections are ongoing as 9 presidential and 5 senatorial candidates have begun their campaigns and are preparing their speeches for the election assembly on October 26th. As I've stated before, this year we look to return to the previous structures to rebuild student government with its strong foundations. And because of this, the 9th graders will be giving their speeches in person in our Performing Arts Center, as opposed to a live stream Google Meet during Advisor Base. The return of traditions like these are just some things that we see bringing back the passion for student government. We look forward to welcoming our new freshman officers at our next XCOM meeting. Our student government mass meeting structure has also been adjusted from feedback that we received following our first meeting. Earlier today, we had our second mass meeting where we included a more defined agenda with set timelines, room diagrams for breakout discussions, and improved chair arrangements to make people feel more included. We have also introduced the process for selecting subcommittee chairs. I look forward to including the chair people in my cabinet, which will make it easier to give these subcommittees their focuses for the year and goals that they may set. By doing this, Omar and I aim to increase the reach of student government within our school to more effectively and efficiently create change. That is all I have for updates from GHS, and I'm excited to share with you our continued success as we look to have a fully established student government by next month. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay, hey, Lil, you're up. And John, you're going to follow Lil. You get to speak again.
Good evening, everyone. Whoa. I'm excited to be here this evening. It could be a little roller coaster ride of a speech, but I always end on a happy note. Buckle your seatbelts. Let's go for a ride. All right. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of some data from state surveys. I know it's all been in the news, but I'm just going to highlight a few things. CEA surveyed almost about 8,000 teachers. And some of the results have been posted up in the news. And I want to just highlight a few things. 3/4 of the educators say they are more likely to leave early in retirement. In 2021, it was 38%. In 22, it was 55%. And now in the year September 23rd, based on this survey, 74%. Nearly 2/3 of educators would discourage friends and family members from becoming teachers. 64% would be discouraged, 36% encourage. So what are our top concerns? I'll list just a few of them here. 87% of the teachers stress and burnout. 84% politicians and non-educators making classroom decisions. 72% staff shortages. 71% educators not respected. 70% teachers leaving the profession. 58% student mental health, and 66% student behavior. top proposals to address educator shortage. And I'll talk a little bit briefly how that relates to our community in Greenwich. The top proposals, raising salaries. We have great salaries here in Greenwich, but that will come into play, and I'll explain that in a minute. The top things that teachers need and want, more planning time, 97% rating. Limit non-teaching duties and excessive paperwork, 97%. More effective disciplinary policies, 96%. Reduce class sizes, 96%. More mental health and behavior safety supports for our students, 95%. And more teacher autonomy and instructional practices. Frustration and burnout levels continue rising, with 3/4 of teachers feeling the negative impact. So what does that mean here for Greenwich? We're not immune to this. I've been talking about this for a couple of years, about the teacher shortage and retention. We have been fortunate. Last year, we started with about 100 openings and filled, and this year was less. And we were very fortunate to fill our openings. We have a few sped and maybe a psych, but that's going to catch up to us. In the sense that when I go to state meetings, the other districts are always tease me about, yeah, Greenwich stole this many teachers and Greenwich stole that many teachers. But just recently, other districts are catching on. Bridgeport just negotiated the contract. They got a 17.9% raise. We are not the start. They are comparable to Greenwich now. Ansonia is ranked #1 for starting salary at $63,000. Bridgeport is just under that. Greenwich, our starting BA salary is 57 and a master's is 63. So what does that tell you? People and teachers aren't going to come down to Greenwich and travel for that commute for almost equal salary. They're going to stay in their area and work in their schools till they get their tenure and maybe come down here. So I anticipate that we may not be as fortunate as we've been in these last couple of years, because the salaries are getting competitive. The other thing that came out of the survey talked about from the American Psychologists Association, 1/3 of teachers reported they experienced at least an incident of verbal harassment, threat, violence from students. And that happens here. I'm sorry to say it does. That's the fact. And part of that is resources, supporting our budget. I think we had about 200 students that came in after our budget is already made. Think about that. Could be 7 or 8 teachers that were short. That could be support staff, paras, subs. That's $500,000. As my mom said, you rob Peter to pay Paul. Well, we have those students, but we don't have the money to do that. Lack of resources can and will at times escalate school violence. And it's not just any one thing. There's lots of reasons why. Students are still experiencing the hardship of the pandemic, the soft skills, how to organize, how to do different things. There's hardships at home. Students are dealing with trauma. There's not enough interventions. We have to really take a look at this seriously, because the Greenwich teachers are feeling the stress, feeling the anxiety, feeling the lack of support. And that takes money. It takes money. And I don't want to hear we don't have the money. I'm hearing from administration, different people, oh, we don't have the money. I mean, what a headline that would be, Greenwich, we have no money. So a little bit about paras are not in my union, but they come and they ask for support. A lot of them don't stay in their union. They are a vital asset to our educational process, a vital asset to help support our children and support in the classroom. We are short of paras. Everybody is. It's a shortage, and it's a simple business decision. It's supply and demand. Every district is short subs. Every district is short paras. So we have to be smarter and have a better business model to attract those professionals. They do so much in the classroom, and they don't even make minimum wage. And if you're a 0.7 para in Greenwich, you don't even get insurance. These are things that we need to really think about. And it's catching up. We see it in the classrooms. The teachers are trying to do their best, but we need to have the BE2T approve requests for interim funding, and we need the RTM to approve funding. It's for our children. It's for our education and our teachers to keep and retain them. We have to remember that schools are an investment in the future, and it is an economic driver for our town. So if, when the time comes, when it's time to vote, I'm not telling you how to vote, but please vote for our children and for our schools. All right, now let's kick it up a notch. Turn that, Debbie Downer is gone now. How do you like that, huh? Woohoo. You like that little segue? All right, here we go. All right, so I know I missed the recognition. And speaking of shortage areas, I know it's, cancer, breast awareness, I'm wearing pink, but I also assign officials in D1 hockey, and we were down officials. So I had to go run over to the high school and do the varsity field hockey game there. So to officiate there. So congratulations to her. Yes, they did. They won 3-1. Karen was there taking pictures. I hope you got a good angle of me, okay. Had to keep her off the field, she was trying to be behind the goal. No, I did not. I have a good 45 years I've been doing this. I have a great reputation, Joe. Don't ruin it now, okay? All right, so I just want to Christina and Joe, I could speak hours of things to say how much bipartisan, how much you really have impacted the board. I've worked with a lot of boards in my time here as different years of presidency, and that's been wild. But I must say, this has been a real pleasure with this board. You get a lot of work done. You may not agree, but you seem to get to the right place and do the best for our children. And I want to thank you for GA from the bottom of my heart. I have little gifts here for you. I'm not going to open them now and show you, but I will say, I did pack the paperwork from the Board of Ed for fingerprinting, so you can all sign up to sub, because we have a sub shortage and a para shortage. And I got you little t-shirts, and you have your little lunch bag, so you can pack your lunch when you come to school, okay? And things like that. And this is not for no alcoholic beverages, guys, in school, okay? All right, so
Policy.
that's right. So I just want to thank you. I thank everyone on the board. It is a volunteer. People forget it is a volunteer job. And you put so much time in researching. You're all very articulate and really do your due diligence on researching things. But sorry, guys, it's not about you tonight. It's about Joe and Christina. So thank you very much. Joe, Christina, you get the blue bag.
Blue one.
Thank you. Joe, you get the black.
Thank
bag.
you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. It is now, thank you, Lil.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's now time for community comment. Karen, who do we have up first?
PTA council.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jonathan, I almost forgot you. I mentioned you and then I crossed you out. More props.
Chair Kelly,
BOE members, Dr. Jones, everyone here, everyone listening, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm John Fisher, in case you weren't listening earlier. I'm the president of the Greenwich PTA Council. I'm the parent of 2 of the 8,611 great kids in the Greenwich Public Schools. PTA Council, is this working?
Yes.
Or am I just talking really loud?
No, no, it's good.
Okay. The PTA Council is the umbrella organization made up by and for the 15 independent PTAs in town. It's October. Now is the time to join your local PTA if you haven't done that yet. The PTAs need your support to continue to do the great work we do in partnership with the schools. Let me start PTA comments tonight with an appreciation to the board for your consistent votes and your continuing advocacy for OGS and CMS capital projects, as represented by Chair Kelly and by others who have been omnipresent at various board meetings around town. We know tonight's agenda is centered on the capital budget. I'll come back to that. But first, a few other agenda items. We got a preview of the GHS student government request item. Still don't know the details. But as an organization that always supports and advocates for our students, I hope what you ask for is huge. Whatever it is, we urge the board to support the students. We saw the 2024-25 school calendar with its first day of school on Friday before a 3-day holiday weekend. We know a lot of considerations come into play with that, but this is starting to look like a bad habit that we'd like to kick. 3 interim funding requests on the action items tonight. No question that all 3 of these need to be approved. Parkway Water, our kids and our educators need to have clean water. HAMAV HVAC, our kids and our educators need to have clean air and comfortable temperatures. Special ed funding, the district spends a lot for special ed, as it should, because every kid is our kid and all of our kids deserve better education, the best education that we can give them. Spending on special ed is a far better value for everyone than spending on litigation settlements. And now, for the elephant in the room. Excuse me. We see the capital project budgets for CMS, OGS, JC, and the start of Riverside. As everyone knows, PTAC adamantly supports all of these, as does the vast majority of parents in every corner of Greenwich. ADA compliance, for gosh sakes, the budget shows we'll still be working to get ADA compliance in the 2028-29 school year, almost 40 years, 39 years after the ADA Act was signed into law. We heard that a kid using crutches fell on the stairs during a fire drill in a non-ADA compliant school this week. Accelerating getting all the schools up to ADA standards is a far better value for everyone than to pay litigation settlements. Many maintenance items included in this budget, long history of underfunding maintenance. We've seen the results: collapsed ceilings, burst pipes, boarded up windows in the iconic Havermeyer building. It is fiscally wiser to pay for preventive maintenance than to pay for more costly reactive repairs. We saw that a number of items had been moved out to future years. We regret that, but overall support the priorities reflected in this budget. It's a big budget compared to previous projections. We will just say that 118% of not enough is perhaps still not enough, but it's a solid start. We urge the board and subsequently the first selectman and the BET to support this budget. And we thank all of you for your public service. Don't forget to join your PTAs, and thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, community comments. Karen?
Our first speaker is Julie Freniers, followed by Carrie Bisbee.
Oh, by the way, just a little rule change. If you're speaking about me and Christina, you could speak endlessly. If you are speaking about a topic, you only have 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Rules of the normal. What are we, 3 minutes? 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Kelly, Dr. Jones, members of the Board of Ed, Cabinet, PTA, and community. My name is Julie Ferniars, and I am the Executive Director of the Greenwich Alliance for Education. For 17 years, the Alliance has been the education foundation for the public schools. I missed my opportunity last month to say welcome back to school because it was the beginning of my son's wedding weekend. So now, 8 weeks in, congrats to our school leaders and teachers on the successful beginning of the 23-24 school year. Thanks, Christina and Joe, for being liaisons to the Greenwich Alliance. We appreciate your perspectives and for helping us communicate our work. It is nice to see you both want to continue giving back to Greenwich as RTM members. Tomorrow, I will be attending the 90th birthday celebration of Riverside School. This beloved building is a community treasure, and while on the older side, it deserves investments of capital, as do our other school buildings. Children should be learning in schools that are ADA compliant, structurally sound and safe, and funded at the levels that are guided by highly experienced educational industry professionals. Our Reaching Out grants funding of almost $100,000 to projects at Western, Ham Ave, New Lev, and JC is already engaging students and teachers. Our grants are reaching the students identified as high needs in tonight's enrollment report. We are excited that the Robust Theater program in its third year at New Lev School is being replicated at JC. All students will participate in a variety of performance and theater opportunities. Teachers and parents of New Lev students indicate the performances are sharpening reading skills, building confidence, and teaching public speaking. I am hosting 2 virtual Reaching Out grant workshops on October 24th and 30th for all educators and PTAs to learn more about how to apply. I encourage you to leverage the Alliance to bring innovative programming to your schools or to expand existing projects to more students or teachers. Please make an effort to attend one of the sessions. It is nearly time for students to submit their college applications. Alliance Avid Success volunteers under the direction of the Avid teachers have been working directly with Avid 12th graders to complete their college essays and Common Apps in order to meet the upcoming deadlines. Avid Success is also helping Avid students find and participate in
30
community
seconds.
service projects and has good money habits at workshops at Western and Central. Thanks to Roots and Shoots Club for collecting 38 books for the Boys and Girls Club. All the kids went home with big bags full. And as everybody knows, it's turkey trot time. It was in today's digest. Thank you to Jonathan. And this is a family-friendly, slightly competitive 5K and 1 mile race, raising lots of fun and lots of funds for the Alliance. And just if anybody's wondering, North Miamis is in the lead right now. And register at thegreenwichalliance.org. Thank you.
Next up is Carrie Bisbee, to be followed by Claire Johnson.
Claire and I are going to combine our time.
Good evening. I'm Claire Johnson, co-president of the Riverside School PTA, and I'm joined by Carrie Bisbee, former Riverside PTA co-president and current PTAC Facilities Committee member. We represent a community of families who value their children's education and Riverside's identity as a neighborhood school with most students living within a mile of the campus. Our PTA is a frequent user of the space inside the school. As a result, we are familiar with several of our building's shortcomings. We admit that tonight's remarks do appear a lot like the ones we shared with you a year ago, because as you all know, the issues in our building remain the same. In fact, the 10% year-over-year increase in enrollment to the tune of 40 additional students this year means our concerns about our building's shortcomings are worse. Some examples of our building's issues include accessibility. Our building has no elevator. The second floor, which contains our art and general music classrooms used by every Riverside student, plus homerooms for almost 250 students, can only be reached via 2 flights of stairs. This created a problem at the start of the school year when a student with a cast above his knee and requiring a wheelchair had no way of getting up to his homeroom on the second floor, thereby displacing his class of 26 students to a room on the ground floor for a number of weeks. Square footage per student. According to the facilities master plan, our school has some of the smallest K through 5 classrooms. And when using current enrollment data, a net square footage per K through 5 student that's well below the district average. Our cafeteria. The BOE has noted that our cafeteria measures in at 1,700 square feet. When factoring in the size of our student population, that makes it even more cramped than Julie and Curtis's, especially during our 2 largest lunch waves that each bring nearly 90 students into the space. Capacity constraints. Every room and every space in this building is being used. In the span of a day, some spaces are being repurposed multiple times and are being used by multiple instructors across different specialties.
Enrollment in grades 2 and 4 class sections is also at maximum capacity. If just a few more students had enrolled in those grades, thereby triggering additional class sections, we would not have had enough standard size classrooms to accommodate every homeroom and ALP, ELA, and STEM. Instructors without classroom space. For some in recent years, their space has been a desk along a wall in the media center. Elsewhere, for example, half our weekly band lessons are taught in a vestibule just outside the gymnasium while PE classes are taking place. Our principal, Chris Weiss, has echoed our sentiments in writing to this board as he could not be here in person tonight. We are proud to be celebrating our school's 90th anniversary tomorrow, and we are fortunate that at 90 years old, our school building is picturesque and well-built, but that does not change the fact that it is outdated, capacity constrained, and for decades at this point in violation of ADA accessibility requirements. We believe these problems warrant a proper study to understand the full extent of the building's issues. We appreciated your support for this a year ago and were disappointed when it was omitted from the fiscal 24 budget by the first selectman and certain members of the BET. To that end, we ask that you include the $150,000 feasibility study at Riverside in the fiscal 25 BOE capital budget. We are also encouraged by your efforts to sharpen the construction cost estimates and condense the funding timeline in the years beyond fiscal 25. We understand that our town is in the midst of funding a number of other important projects at CMS, OGS, and JC, all of which the Riverside community fully supports, and we ask that you keep the momentum. Since being cataloged in the facilities master plan more than 5 years ago, our building's array of issues will not change until we take preliminary steps to fully understand and in the coming years complete the necessary work to resolve them. Advancing this project is important to our community, and as stewards of our excellent school system, we imagine it is important to you too. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everything you do for our community.
Next up is Janet McMahon, followed by Bob Cheney.
Good evening, Chairman Kelly, Dr. Jones, members of the Board of Education, and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to address you all tonight. My name is Janet McMahon, and I am speaking to you tonight as the newly inaugurated chairwoman of the PTA Council Facilities Committee. In case you're not aware, Facilities is one of 17 standing committees within PTAC, and my committee is tasked with facilitating communication and coordination between PTAs and the Board of Education relating to planned, new, and ongoing facilities matters across the district. Our committee is in full support of the Board of Education's capital budget as written and submitted. Our committee unequivocally supports the expeditious rebuild of Central Middle School and the renovation and expansion of Old Greenwich School. PTAC Facilities is aligned with the Board of Education on the appropriation of all of the necessary construction funds for these two schools and stands ready to advocate for the appropriation of those funds with the requisite town bodies. It shouldn't bear mentioning that structurally sound and safe buildings should be our #1 priority, along with ADA accessibility, functional HVAC systems, and sewage-free classrooms. PTAC Facilities was also pleased to see that the Board of Ed is beginning to look ahead to another long overdue project, the Riverside School renovation, and is requesting feasibility study funds to get the project started. This original 2-story building was built in 1932 with an addition built in 1950 and the last 4 classroom additions in 1995. Despite these additions, Riverside remains one of the most crowded schools, as you heard, in the district, with every square inch of the building being used and some spaces being repurposed multiple times a day. This year, as you've heard, the school came dangerously close to not having enough homeroom and ALP classrooms. In addition to the severe lack of program space, Riverside students have had to deal with security, ADA accessibility, and health and safety issues for several decades. Another project that the PTAC Facilities Committee is in strong support of, but which has been delayed from prior budget cycles, is the GHS Cellular project. On Tuesday, GHS and CMS experienced an unverified threat, which resulted in a secure the building exercise for about an hour. I heard from several parents who were unable to hear from their children during that time due to the spotty cellular reception, and which caused unnecessary anxiety for all involved. In conclusion, PTAC Facilities supports addressing all of the capital deficiencies as outlined in the Board of Ed capital budget in a timely manner. The more we delay these projects, the more we open up our town to liability and preventable construction escalation costs. It also has the unintended consequence of delaying lower priority school construction projects and only compounds the existing backlog of projects. I would like to remind the Greenwich community that we're currently in year 6 of the 15-year facilities master plan with no schools currently under construction, and this is both fiscally irresponsible and unacceptable.
Time.
Please vote yes to approve the capital budget as written.
Next up is Bob Cheney, to be followed by Claire Kilgallen.
I'll be Mr. Kelly now, just for today. Just today. Good evening. My name is Bob Cheney, and I am speaking as a concerned parent with 2 boys here at Central Middle School. I first wanted to say thank you to this board for your support and your desire to get these schools built to the size and scope that is necessary. The amount of hoops you guys have had to jump through and the endurance you guys needed to keep running after those goalposts that kept moving and are still moving is incredible. Thank you. I know others have already said this, but thank you, Mr. Kelly and Ms. Downey, for your hard work on this board. As a volunteer myself for various town entities, I'm involved in the PTA. I'm on the Julian Curtis Building Committee with Mr. Kelly. I am an RTM member for District 11, so I realize the time commitment necessary. And I just want to say thank you so much for all you guys have done and hopefully will do in other capacities for the town of Greenwich. Now, on to other items. I just want to say that I fully support the capital budget as written and submitted. I support the renovation and expansion of the old Greenwich School. I think it's a very important project and hope we can keep it moving forward. I also brought information if anyone's interested in reading the facts about the OGS project. I also fully support the rebuild of Central Middle School and the ed specs as approved by your body on August 11th, 2022, and as revised on April 24th, 2023. I wanted to speak to the public a bit more about the misinformation still being spread about this project. Central Middle School is a campus project. It's a 22-acre project that costs $112 million for the entire campus. The building itself is only $79 million of the project. The rest goes to cultivating the entire campus into a beautiful, safe, and secure area that will improve traffic flow. As a parent that drops my boys off here every day for school, better traffic flow in the surrounding neighborhood is extremely necessary. And I just want to repeat what I just said about this project. The Central Middle School building is only $79 million, not $112 million, as is being said around town. And I have to say, it just astounds me that the BET has let the Central Middle School project stall, and the old Greenwich project as well. They've turned down funding for OG 3 times in the last 6 months. The Republicans on the BET are doing their best to defund and stall these projects. And just for the CMS project alone, it cost the taxpayers.
Let's avoid politics if you
Yes,
can.
sir.
Just say
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
It cost the taxpayers in this town $13,000 daily for the CMS project alone. $13,000. That's over $350,000 a month, over $4 million a year. I think even the fiscal conservatives in this town would want this project to move forward so we don't waste any more of the taxpayers' money. Thank you. Good night. Sure.
Next up is Claire Kilgallen, to be followed by Matthew Kane.
Good evening. Thank you to all the BOE members finishing their 4-year terms, but especially Joe and Christina. I want to thank you for your stewardship, your passion, and your integrity. Really. Your terms aren't over, and I know you'll fight for what is right till the end, and we need you. I know Ms. Costin's going to be giving an update to report on the good news about CMS. I'm speaking as an individual, to be clear, and I'm here to speak about the capital budget and CMS's piece in it. Bob has covered some of it, so I'm going to wing some of this. There are those who in these few weeks before November 7th look to cloud the waters and distract voters Don't be fooled. Rely on the bipartisan building committee publications. CMS has a $42 million funding gap. We cannot apply for state reimbursement until we have full appropriation. And to be clear, the application date is not June 30th. It is July 1st through June 30th of each year. Working with the architect, owner's rep, and construction manager, the committee has evaluated multiple design options, trying to satisfy numerous and varied interests, the ed specs, costs, safety, ADA, neighbors, pedestrians, bicycles, traffic, buses, cars, parking, trees, wildlife, conservation, energy, parks, sports, drainage, zoning, building code, and more. It's thoughtful siting, different options, the connection to the outdoor. It's a beautiful plan. And I want to talk about safety. Any school building constructed in Connecticut must adhere to the school safety infrastructure criteria that was established post Sandy Hook. Not only for the building itself, but on the campus on which it sits. This is mandatory. It's an all hazards assessment to the campus. Site development and preparation, perimeter boundaries and access points, secondary perimeters up to the building exterior and the interior building itself. It involves local police, fire, medical, and other local officials. Additionally, this project must satisfy the Connecticut's high performance green building standards. And we are shooting for LEED Gold standards, though we're not going for certification. I just want to dispel a few myths here. There's some preposterous information about thousands of trees being removed. Well, there are only 790 trees on this campus to start with. And 605 will be preserved, 185 removed, with 321 new trees and 369 shrubs added to comply with P&Z regulations. This project is not just a new school. And let's just give some quick hard numbers: $79 million or $627 per square foot for construction. And this 1957 building to be brought into the modern era is about 13,000 square foot of compliance, which is $7.9 million of the cost. Thank you.
Next up is Matthew Kane, to be followed by Dina Urso. Is Matthew here?
Switch it around, sure.
You could, you're swapping spots?
You could swap spots, sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dina Urso. Congratulations to Mr. Kelly and Ms. Downey for their years of service, and we thank you very much for that. I'm speaking on behalf of the CMS PTA tonight. It was a big week for the CMS project, with P&Z's unanimous vote on Tuesday to approve the municipal improvement application and move the preliminary site plan application to final. Now the condition you all put on your 9/21 vote has been met. The P&Z Commission mentioned several times how many people were watching their hearing, commenting that the virtual format allowed for higher viewership than an in-person format would have allowed. We were thrilled to see the strong parent turnout of both current and future CMS students. People are listening, people care, and people are getting frustrated seeing the standstill this project appears to be at. In anticipation of Tuesday's vote, our PTA reached out to presidents of Greenwich PTAC and the PTAs of Coscob, Julian Curtis, North Street, and Parkway schools to ask whether they would consider joining us in an open letter to the BET and RTM. Our ask was that the BET call a special meeting to consider your interim funding request, and that the RTM work to have the request added to its agenda for Monday if the BET granted your request. Unfortunately, we still have not heard any response from the BET. We question why the BET is so adverse to moving this project along. Is it because some in it don't believe that this building is actually crumbling despite giving your board $1.6 million to shore it up in 2022? Or is it because public school parents consist of only 30% of the town? So maybe they don't have to worry about ignoring us. In our letter, we said, quote, "The time for political gamesmanship is over. The time for misrepresenting the size and budget for the project is over. The time for putting students in the middle of adult squabbles is over." Their silence makes us think that they do not share our sentiments. In other CMS PTA news, we had a membership meeting on October 11th and spoke about the building with our members and guests from our feeder schools. We spoke specifically about the preliminary site plans and how they can only become a reality if the rock outcropping is removed. none of those in attendance opposed it. Now, after Tuesday's security scare, we imagine even more appreciate that the outcropping is less than desirable from a building perspective, a building security perspective. Beloved and nostalgic though it may be for some, security of our students must be the main objective at the end of the day. All in all, we are encouraged to see a substantial increase in parents listening and participating in the conversation. We and our children are stakeholders too, as well.
30 seconds.
Maybe 30% is not high enough, not a high enough percentage for the BET to respond to, but public school parents are a scrappy bunch and they are all in from the looks of things this week. Thank you for your time.
So next up is Matthew Kane, to be followed by Angie Hartophilus.
Thanks for indulging our switch. Good evening. My name is Matthew Kane. I am Dina Urso's co-president of the CMS PTA, but I am speaking tonight on my own behalf and not on behalf of our PTA. I want to thank the Board of Education for its unwavering support of the CMS Rebuild project, and most importantly for protecting the integrity of the educational specifications, despite the constant efforts to force you to revise them to cut costs. Sadly, I must also ask that you include the full cost of the CMS Rebuild in the FY25 capital budget, which I think experts tell us will be higher when it's actually potentially approved in the spring than it is today. I do hope that this board will remain steadfast in its support of the CMS Rebuild in the years to come. However, given the upcoming elections and unfortunate retirements, I must also ask that you do whatever is possible to ensure this budget is as set as firmly as possible before the elections. This project should already be fully funded, and we all know why it has not been. We have seen gamesmanship this week from the BET, refusing to hear the application for funding on Monday because of the lack of municipal improvement. And as Dina observed, ignoring our request and the request of many others to call a special meeting to fully fund the project in advance of the RTM meeting scheduled for October 23rd. And something struck me last night as I was watching the BET candidate debates, and I want to urge all the members of the Board of Education and everyone in the audience tonight to do whatever is possible to protect this town from the unserious and unqualified people who are not fit to lead, but are only fit to oppose. I ask you all to do what you can to protect our town, our schools, and our school children from that, which I think is sadly a microcosm of what's going on nationally. Out of respect for Mr. Kelly, I obviously make that admonition and request without mentioning any particular political parties. Thank you very much.
Next up is Angie Hartophilus, followed by Jill Kelly.
Okay. Hello, Superintendent Jones, Chair Kelly, and Board of Ed members. I'm Angie Hartophilus, and this is Abby Clark. We're the PTAC Green Schools co-chairs for this school year. Green Schools is one of 17 committees that operate within PTAC. We are a committed group of volunteers working together across the school to involve everybody in the district. This year, we set 4 goals that we would like to share with you this evening. Goal 1, hold our annual Green Team meetings at every school as soon as possible. These meetings serve to put the Green Team members in communication with each other, check that all materials such as bin and signage are back in place from last year, schedule volunteers for refreshers, as well as to discuss future plans. We are grateful for the collaboration with Waste Free Greenwich and Greenwich Public Schools facilities, especially to Mark Bria, as well as Superintendent Dr. Jones, Blaze, and the Board of Ed to make last year's Zero Waste Initiative such a success. Our second goal is to implement food scrap recycling, also known as organics hauling, by spring of 2024 at all elementary schools. Last session, the state of Connecticut passed Public Act 23-170, making it mandatory for all schools in Connecticut to separate food scraps for composting by January 2025. The state assembly has earmarked $150,000 to the town of Greenwich for efforts to reduce food waste in the district. The funds will be used through June 2024 to expand organics recycling at the elementary schools in order to comply with the new law. Green Schools is working with Waste Free Greenwich and GPS facilities to organize and implement the waste program.
Our third goal is to promote Earth Week. So next year it's on April 22nd, 2024, and the school will really encouraging all schools to work with their school, with their PTAs and other community groups to organize and coordinate Earth Week activities. The fourth goal is then to participate and promote maybe one green theme each month to really raise sort of awareness and education around relevant issues. So this month, for example, we've been encouraging greener ways to schools, such as walking, biking, busing, and carpooling. These are the four main goals of our group committed to in September. In our recent October meeting, the Green Schools Committee also decided we should be working together to encourage the design of CMS to be net zero. You will likely be hearing more from us on this topic. We're thrilled that the municipal improvement passed and had some great questions asked during the meeting regarding net zero design. Thank you all, BOE, for all of your supports. Thank you, Dr. Jones, for your support and communication
30
around our green
seconds.
team meetings this year. You have been instrumental in continuing to green our Greenwich Public Schools, and we thank you.
I'm jumping in because I just want to say to Christina and Joe, we're going to really miss you. You've been such advocates for all of our green school initiatives. And I know Julie Deschamps is not here, but I know she wants to say thank you as well. And I do. You have been so awesome to work with. So thank you for all your support.
Next up is Jill Kelly, to be followed by our last speaker, Dr. Evan L. Delman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Kelly, known by some as Joe's personal cheerleader as well. As the wife of the outgoing Board of Ed chair for 34 years, I'm happy to have been able to share Joe with the town of Greenwich for these past 4 years. I knew he would make a difference, even though his education experience wasn't the best growing up due to his dyslexia being a personal obstacle and a constant shadow over his ability to read, write, and excel as a student. I thought his presence on the board would add the valuable perspective of students who constantly struggle with school. Once he became chair, he was clearly the right person for the position. Sometimes it takes a good coach to pull a team together, and sometimes it just takes a good guy. Joe happens to be both. He knows how to work hard, has lots of patience, and is good at collaborating with everyone and instills a sense of teamwork that gets the job done. His goal is always to do the right thing and, of course, have a little fun along the way. Meeting after meeting, phone call after phone call, graduation speech, diploma deliveries, even a charity boxing fight, I watched and listened from the sidelines and knew, without a doubt, Joe was enjoying all the challenges, achievements, and relationships formed serving the Greenwich Public Schools. There's a quote by Winston Churchill: "We will make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." Joe is successfully making a good, actually great, life by what he gives. Time is our most valuable asset, and Joe is not stingy with this. Through his unselfish, I get it. I'm a little emotional. It's like a fun ending. Through his unselfish giving of himself, my 4 kids and I feel in a way that we are giving too. Sharing is caring. Our whole family is happy to share our stable. Our whole family is happy to share our stable, strong, hardworking, capable husband and father. I'm looking forward to where life takes him next. Thank you all for doing all you do for Greenwich.
Thank you. That was awful nice. Thank you, Jill.
Sorry, passionate person.
No.
Someday, Jill, I hope you come and give me a speech like that. And next, and our final speaker for the evening is Dr. L. Delman.
Not gonna kiss you. No matter what you say.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Dr. Evan Delman. I'm on? I'm Dr. Evan Delman. I'm a former RTM committee chair and former town educator. I rise this evening to address the board and the administration. Several weeks ago, I sent the superintendent an email and a copy to the entire board. In that email, I outlined ethical, moral, and illegal actions that involve the Greenwich School Administration. First, I described a student that had not attended a single class that term. The GPA was 0.0 out of 100. and 100% absenteeism. The student had not attended a single class, not attempted a single or completed any single assignment either in person or online. I was directed to email the student a quiz with the answers attached so it could be returned to me. The student was then to be given a passing grade that would allow the student to be graduated the following week at the mid-year graduation ceremony. I queried the ethics and morals of such action. The administrator advised to me it was not a request, but a directive. The Greenwich High School diploma now goes to the highest bidder, no education necessary. In early March 2023, I was physically assaulted by a student. The aforementioned assault was witnessed by staff members and students alike. Within 5 minutes of the event, the administrator was informed. A Greenwich Public School online form was completed and submitted with outlining the event. Many times over the following week, the administrator was reminded that state law required him to take specific actions. The reminders were ignored. Again, the administrator was reminded that Connecticut General Statute 10-10-233G states, and I quote, "Where there is a physical assault made by a student upon a teacher or other school employee on school property or in the performance of school duties, and such teacher or employee files a written report with the school principal based on such assault, the school building principal shall report such physical assault to the local police authority," unquote. The principal is not given a choice. Failure to perform such action is a direct
30
violation of
seconds.
state law. Both of the aforementioned events violated my rights both civically and morally. My letter requested a reply, none was forthcoming. I would like a guarantee that the Greenwich Board of Education will act swiftly to correct these wrongdoings and that the state law will be respected and obeyed. I request a meeting with the superintendent, the entire board, and the Director of Human Resources.
Time.
Thank you. Okay. Now it is the superintendent's report now. Dr. Jones, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. To start out, I want to start with and I think most of our speakers actually referenced it about OG. There is misinformation floating around, and I know Dr. Mercanti Anthony will probably mention it in his comments tonight about the building safety when this building is under construction. And I just want again to reiterate, and we did send a note to all of the OG families to let them know, I don't believe this board would ever support a project if they thought children were going to be in an unsafe building. And they have hired an outstanding team. The building committee is fantastic. They will make sure that a phased renovation is done correctly. And that is not unusual. I've been around school construction my entire career. This is very normal. And when they're doing major abatement, it's generally right there in the summer when nobody's in the building. So again, we're not to the point where you would see a plan because they're not that far along in the design, but they won't put a shovel in the ground until that is communicated to parents and they know exactly what that planning is going to look like. So I just want to, again, just to assure everybody that it's safe. Along with that, I'll go ahead and just mention on Central. And again, I know our speakers spoke eloquently tonight, but I was just so thrilled to be on that planning and zoning meeting and listening to the number of parents and community that showed up to advocate for that project. And I want to say they were so eloquent and the passion that they actually spoke with. And one of the things that really resonated with me is, you know, when they were talking about what our children have been through the last few years, you know, when this building was closed and we had to just, you know, move students in the middle of the year, they've been through COVID, they want their children to stay in this building. while we're building the new construction so that they have their spaces, they have their gym, they have their auditorium. They don't want their children getting on buses and doing what I had to do last time and trying to move them all over the district. It's not easy to move this number of students. So I just want to share that and thank you to every single person who dialed in. On a happy note, my goodness, it was just wonderful to be at Julian Curtis today for UN Day, and they had their parade. 55 different countries were represented. I know Mr. Kelly and Christina, they were both there as well. It's probably one of the it's a joyful event, but it was just fantastic. So congratulations to JC. Also at the homecoming game, again, to those of you who stuck it out and sat out in the rain, it got really, really cold. But it was a really fun game. And I thought it was a great turnout considering the rain that was coming down. So fantastic. I want to mention, I know for PTAC, one thing that our curriculum team has really worked with them over the last couple of years, continuing to have as much curriculum information out there as possible. Thank you to Mike Antonaccio, who worked really hard, has already migrated the 9 through 12 information. Now, when you're on the main page of the website, you can find the K-8 and you can also find the 9-12 information, and you can click into, those are by content and different courses if you have an interest in that. And last but not least, I just want to mention, thank you, Lil, for your comments. When Lil comes to me and we are talking about staff, I'm not the administrator that tells her we have no money. I want her to tell me what we need. And I just want to reiterate that what she's saying is accurate as far as the pressure that a lot of teachers are feeling right now. It's a tough job. The last couple of years, it was really difficult to be a teacher, and we're continuing to listen and work with GEA. And I think, as we're building the operating budget right now, you're going to see, we're going to be requesting some more staffing. We are up over 200 special education children pre-COVID to now, and it's about 150, I believe, EL students. So we are seeing lots of growth and needs within the district. So thank you, Lil, for pointing that out, because we want to have a great partnership with our teachers.
Well, thank you, Tony. I'm going to ask you a question about Old Greenwich School. I guess, well, I've been in the building business for 40 years, and I find the accusations preposterous about the dangers of Old Greenwich School. But I'm not the expert in the room. Can I call on Dan Watson, our facilities manager, to opine, jump in here with a couple of words on talking about, we already talked about it, Dan, remember? So can you come up and talk about about Old Greenwich School? You make like I'm calling on you out of the blue. Grumble, grumble, grumble.
What would you like me to say, Mr. Kelly?
Well, it's about these the remediation that's going to take place at Old Greenwich School and the safety of the children. And I always check with you and make sure that as the director of facilities, you would never let a child go into any of our schools that they'd be at risk or any sort of danger. You've repeated that to me dozens of times in my tenure.
Absolutely. And just let me reiterate, the team that is in place at Old Greenwich, from the Old Greenwich Building Committee to the team that they have for the design team and the construction folk, are all professionals. This isn't their first rodeo. They know how to get it done. To work in, to add on to a building, a school building, is not new. It happens every day across the country. There's laws, rules, regulations in place that will protect the occupants of the building. OSHA will play a big part in it. And I can assure you that everything that needs to be done will be done and checked before even I get involved. I don't think there's a problem. I know there won't be a problem. There are, items in every building, probably in your homes. You probably all have asbestos of some form in your home, or lead or arsenic or PCBs. It's a common occurrence. And the way it's handled is regulated. So I can tell you that there will be several different departments that will have eyes on that project, as well as any other project in town. So I hope that answers your questions. And if you have anything else, let me know.
No, thank you, Dan. Sure. Appreciate it. Anybody else for questions on the superintendent's report? Hearing none, we will then move on to the committees, liaisons and officers reports. Do we have anyone who would like to make such a report? Michael?
I might as well continue the theme here.
Oh, sure,
So I
of
have,
course.
so continuing the theme, I do have the Old Greenwich Building Committee report. So, so picking up, I'm giving some color here. So, as the board, is aware, at our last board meeting, we passed two motions. One, requesting, the release of the million or so, funds left, the release of conditions of $1 million or so for design and development. And then also we requested the full construction funding. At Monday's BET meeting, as we've heard many people say, refer to, the one request was granted. They did release the conditions on design and development. So Old Greenwich Committee, the building committee, is able to move forward with continuing the design and development work, which is important because the committee was scheduled to run out of money before the end of the fiscal year. The BET did not release the full construction funds. As part of that community conversation that occurred this week, several concerns were raised both in the meeting and in other areas around the topic of asbestos. There was, in my opinion, a regrettable and ill-informed email blast that went out to many community members that caused a significant concern to the community. Personally, I took umbrage to the insinuation that I, as the representative of the building committee to the board, would bring forth to the board any kind of project that would be in any way present any kind of harm or danger to our schools and our students. They obviously this board would not have supported bipartisan 8-0 any project that in any way presented any kind of half-baked plan or plan that did not fully support fully the safety of our students. Nor would the first selectman and the bipartisan board of selectmen have passed unanimously the project, nor would the planning and zoning pass unanimously and give an MI to the project. It's important to talk about that publicly because parents are busy, folks are busy. It'd be very easy for someone to, in the midst of their day, to see an email that says asbestos on Old Greenwich. Oh my goodness, what's going on? And why should I be concerned here? And you shouldn't be concerned. As we've heard as you heard Dan Watson say, and we've heard a number of people say, these concerns are unfounded. The building committee released this morning a letter to the community, as well as an FAQ that very clearly explains the process, where we are in the process. The building committee did commission our professionals to test extensively for asbestos. There is, of course, asbestos in the building, as there is in, I'm sure, any building that's 50 years old or older. And there was a plan that the plan for remediation was put as part of that the budget. The next step in the process is to develop construction and phasing documents that will carefully lay out the plan. No plan can move forward without it being approved by the Board of Health, as well as in any other bodies. So there is no risk. The claim that any claim or any concern that, well, there's no plan for remediation, ignores the fact that that is the next step in the process and the appropriate next step. The logic behind these concerns is specious at best and spurious at most.
Those are good words. I can't wait to look them up.
Big updates.
Excellent. Thank you. And just further elaborating that as the board chair, a year ago or so, in a meeting discussing Old Greenwich School, I had asked a similar question. about remediation in the building, because it was only 1989 that they made using asbestos in building illegal. And that's asbestos materials produced in the United States. So that went a little longer, further out than that. Thank you, Dan. Footnote. So basically, I did some research on my own, and also was answered by the building committee. Many of those, they answered those questions for me, and I was satisfied. And there, as the chairman and representing the combined board, I was 100% in support of the project moving forward after we've already had that discussion. So this is the rebirth of something that's already been asked and answered. It's been solved, and there's no reason to believe that there's any danger going forward. And I don't like the fact that it was said. So I'm 100% satisfied. I would send my kid, if I had a kid that age in that community, to that school without hesitation. Next. Let's Christina, go ahead. Go ahead.
Speaking on an easier building project, the high school entryway is moving along. If anyone's driven by, it's kind of chaotic out there, but we have bi-weekly meetings with our architect and our builder, and things are moving along on pace, on time. Things have been ordered that need to be ordered. So, Joe, I know you love bricks. There may be a little brick project out front. So we're working on kind of raising the extra money that's needed for the hardscape items, which was not part of the original budget. Things like bike racks, tables, benches, which we didn't have enough money for, but are not required by planning and zoning. So a small subgroup is working with the PTA at the high school to see about a brick fundraiser. And Karen's going to share it with me. So that's that. If there's any questions, and I can talk about Havemeyer. Do you want me to? Any questions on the high school? Going once, going twice. On the Havemeyer committee that Joe and I sit on is winding down and working on putting together a report at some point in the next couple of weeks. Since basically it's Joe and myself and two members of the BET who are not going to be running either. So there was a general movement that perhaps the committee should complete its work and see what the next phase is.
Great. Laura, go ahead.
Thank you. I hope you will allow me a little latitude so I can give you a slightly more lengthy report than usual. As you heard, the CMS Building Committee got MI and preliminary site plan approval from Planning and Zoning. I too want to thank all the speakers who waited for hours to express their support for the project. They were terrific. Obviously, we are hoping the BET will meet expeditiously to approve our interim request. I do want to take a moment to respond to some misinformation that some of you are aware has been disseminated via a distributed document into the public domain about the siting of the building, the timing, the size of the building, and the price tag. On the siting, as Dr. Jones mentioned, GPS and the board were mindful of the disruption to students and families if they were to be displaced for 2 whole years during construction. Keeping the building safe and available to our students was paramount so the community could be kept together and their access to their teachers and their learning would not be interrupted. One of the speakers touched on the current site plan, which allows for the removal of the rock outcropping. Removal of that outcropping does help our sight lines for safety, but it also allows us to maximize our field space. And for years, we have heard that we do not have enough fields in town, so we should not miss the opportunity to maximize the ones we have here on site. Additionally, a 2-story building design was selected to be respectful of the residential neighborhood we are located in and to prevent the project from having to receive a variance through planning and zoning. On the timing, there's an accusation that the Board of Education missed a deadline with the state to secure reimbursement. That is untrue. As you heard from another speaker, there is no ability to file with the state if there's inadequate funding, and the board, it did not miss a funding deadline. There is another assertion that this building is being built for a range of sizes of students, but up to 750. That is simply untrue. Our building can comfortably accommodate up to 660 students. We were told that if a bubble comes through beyond another 40 students, issues of overcrowding would become evident. And that brings me back quickly to the money. We've repeatedly heard some on the BET insist that the 67.5 million budgeted for the project is reasonable and prudent. What the public may not understand is that demolition, abatement, site work, final site work, and soft costs are completely neutral to the size of the building. Those items alone total over $33 million. If we're given a $67.5 million budget, that leaves another 33-ish million for the actual building. At $627 a square foot, we'd only have enough money to build a building half the size of the one we are sitting in now, which would be completely unworkable. The document I'm addressing has a lot of falsehoods, but it also seeks to inject fear into the community on a number of issues, including seeking to fill this building by allowing neighboring towns to bus kids into Greenwich, which is categorically untrue. I believe everybody is entitled to their opinions, but not their own facts. For more information, please see the 5th quarterly report from the building committee and the committee's letter to the community dated October 5th, available on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I hope we don't hear something like they discover some ancient Native American burial ground or something on the site, so it delay it further, or maybe a dormant volcano or something like that. Let's hope that
No
doesn't-
volcanoes I am aware of, no
Good.
fault lines.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I don't want to give any ideas to anybody, but I just hope we're not prepared for stuff like that. Okay. I'll quickly go to JC. JC, we have, we're moving along nicely. We have another meeting coming up with the elevators. We're talking about the phasing of the elevator. We're going to do the pre-work, get it done in the summertime. And then it's going to take us a little while to order will take us a while to get the elevator delivered. It won't take us a little while to order it. We'll order it and put it in place when the timing's right. And there's a delay of about a year to get an elevator and all the things that go with an elevator. So we're moving along nicely, JC. Anybody else? Any more committee liaison? Anything else we want to talk about? Okay. Mike, you have something? Oh, fantastic.
So just very quickly, the Research Ed Conference continues apace. So as everyone knows, we are hosting the Research Ed Conference here in Greenwich, Research Ed Greenwich in April. The registration site for this conference should be going live any day now. We've also been in contact with PTAC and the GEA, and they've identified members to serve in the committee. And Dr. Jones and I are meeting next week to identify staff members as well to move forward for organizing the conference.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Karen, do you have something?
No, well, when we get to action items, I have a motion / request.
We are in action items. Action items.
I'm hopeful that we have the same motion, Karen.
Yes.
Well, I would like to make a motion to be able to move these GHS student government request up to being the first action item, as I know our high school students have probably a lot of homework and things they need to get home to do.
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Everybody unanimous moved up. So the motion, let me see.
Is Cody with us? He's Cody? I think Cody went shushy. Okay. So it'll be
Okay, here we
7-0.
go. I am going to make a motion to approve the request of a preliminary research into the feasibility and funding of a cash register scanner in Cardinal Cafe to pay for food using student new digital IDs. Do I have a second? Oh, okay. Kathleen seconding it. Okay, discussion item. Gentlemen, come on up.
Once we get, while they're walking up, this is the first time we've heard this, nor do we have the documents in front of us, and we always have a second read. So I just been putting that out there for the board that if this is something that they want to move forward, we have to make a motion to waive the second read.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the, for
I think
waive
we
the
need to,
second read.
yeah, we need to wait till they.
I don't think we have a requirement for 2 reads except on policies.
Okay, you sure?
It's not a requirement, yeah, except for policies.
Perfect. Okay, we'll know what you just said then. Thank you. Okay, questions for our student government representatives? Can you please begin by explaining what your request is?
So essentially, we're requesting a small group of people to do, like you said, preliminary research on the possibility of implementing scanners. As we do have new digital IDs, it would help to expedite the process much further and speed in the lines, which students have already found issues with the amount of time that it takes to get lunch. So by speeding up this process, by implementing scanners, if possible, then that would be something that we hope to get out of that research.
Well, I'll jump in right now. I was at the XCOM meeting just the other day, and as I was surprised to see the line waiting for the students to get food. I thought that was a kind of a waste of time for kids to be waiting, or students to be waiting on that line. So this is something to address that issue. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Karen?
How do students currently pay? Is it still by the same card that's run through the reader that you get to start at elementary school, or is there some other methodology?
Yes, currently the students have used the same 5-digit code. Some students before did not know their 5-digit code and had there was a day where we had required students to also bring out their digital IDs to get that 5-digit code. And so now that they have that, they've also combined that with showing the ID to verify their identity. So it's only increased the amount of time that it takes to get food. So basically the way the system works right now is that you put in the PIN, the 5-digit PIN, and then show your ID afterwards. But that's been happening for the past 2 days.
Karen.
I'm not
Oh,
done yet.
sorry. I
So
apologize.
I guess that question goes to Tony. Why do they have to show their card at the same time? Because I know they don't have to do that in elementary or middle school.
In all honesty, I don't know. So I'll find out.
Oh, yeah.
Karen, can we move on to, okay, Karen, go ahead.
So I just want to confirm that what you're asking from us is just to work together with you guys to have a group to research implementing this and what the costs might be.
Yes, that's exactly
Well,
the request.
as somebody who's been sitting with you on XCOM, I'd be happy to help you with that. I'm happy to sit on that with you.
Anybody else? Kathleen or Kathleen?
So, okay, is this like Apple Pay basically then? It's going to be like Apple Pay kind of?
I guess so. Essentially, I mean, yeah, if you want to speak to it.
It's a bit closer to the scanners that they use at a library or a cashier. So we're going to go from students having to pull IDs out on their phone and type in a code, which was recently changed. So many of the students don't know their codes. That was the issue. That was the initial issue with the lines. And the reason, and it's still the reason why the lines are long today. And what we're trying to do is just move to the students take out their phone, show their digital ID, which has a barcode on it, and the cafeteria worker on the other side only has to like use a scanner similar to how they would scan a product at a cashier.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Can I just ask you, will it be not noticeable to the children that have to do the free and reduced lunch? No one would be able to see the difference. Like it would be the same exact situation, right?
Well, no,
Everyone. Correct. Okay, good. I just wouldn't want there to be any differentiation. That's great. Why
all
not?
students have the same like digital ID.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's fine, right? Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, so I applaud that. It's great that you guys are coming with real ideas and action items, and hopefully in his last full meeting, Mr. Kelly has started a tradition here. I guess I'm just curious about the wording of the motion, because it sounds like what you're asking is to research this, not to actually implement it yet. Is that right?
It's more to do about the research of the price, the cost of implementation.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that we're researching what to do.
Okay, so you're actually requesting the item. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, I'm happy to have it reworded. If you're interested in doing that, I can withdraw my motion and you could reword it.
No, I'm not sure that we need to. I was just trying to clarify the request. Yeah.
Wait. Could I ju-
Exactly.
What, so we're voting, the question, the motion is on what? We're not requesting the item, they're requesting have a committee to research it. Which isn't really something the board even has to vote on, but this is good about them learning process. So I'm totally good with it. I just want to understand what we're voting on.
So what's the wording right now?
Yeah.
I'll read it again. Approve request of a preliminary research into the feasibility and funding of cash register scanners in the Cardinal Cafe to pay for food using student new digital IDs. Is that satisfactory? Shall I
Well,
call the question?
I have a
Would you like to-
question. No, you can go.
The only suggestion I would make, if you need to reword that, is to say possible funding, because we won't know, we can't approve funding without an actual number or knowing what we're approving. Just my thought.
To change the wording, you have to have a motion to amend or reword. the
I'd like to
motion.
make a motion to amend the motion to add the word, what is it? Possible funding. Or
I'll second that. All right, all in favor of amending the motion, say aye or raise your hand. All right, Cody, are you still with us?
I think
No,
it's
7-0, that's in favor. So you're not done yet. That's only a.
I have a question on the underlying.
So now I'll call the question. on-
No, I have a question on the underlying
You have,
motion.
you have a question on the underlying motion, the new motion
The motion as amended.
as amended. Yes, thank you.
Yes. Just in terms of, you said a committee, is that correct? Do you, and maybe just as we were all figuring this out, who would be on the committee? Do you have any thoughts on that? Just because it'd be helpful for us to understand the composition.
Yes, so potentially we were thinking maybe somebody on the administration, but then more specifically someone involved in lunch services. So whoever we can find that's higher up within lunch services at our school would definitely be most helpful. So because they have a better understanding of how the system works, how many students they're having come in and out every day. And then maybe even a couple class representatives. But just yeah, for that.
But yeah, I think you're right. Somebody from administration and somebody from food services are sort of essential elements for you. So, okay, just making sure.
Anybody else? I would like to call
I was just gonna say, call the question.
the question. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. That is approved unanimously. I'm incredibly proud of you, gentlemen. This was great. You might realize someday how important this was, setting precedents like Michael had said. I think it's great. I'm glad you went to this extent. You were so eloquent in presenting your case. You won. You have your case. We'll now follow through with that, or instruct our superintendent then to follow through with that, because we accepted, made the motion, accepted it, so moved. So thank you guys. That was great. Good stuff.
look forward to hearing more about this at the next XCOM.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations.
May I ask one question?
Of course.
So the wording for this was a bit limited. If the objective is to get these scanners, or any objective really, and the wording is sort of kept us back to like the preliminary stages of achieving this objective.
Well, I'll speak for myself. I believe this started the ball rolling. So what you get now is administrational to understand that we're interested. We've shown on a unanimous vote that we'd like to support your initiative. Dr. Jones will then examine what has to be done, pass it down to the head of the building, and then the building will implement the plan. The head of the building, your principal, will implement the plan. So this is just to get the ball rolling. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I correct on that, team? So you've started it off, and now our people will now take care of it because it came from the board. Now they have to do it because you put it forward and we agreed with it.
But my question is, if there's ever an instance where there's a very specific request that we have, is it possible for us to just ask outright, like a motion to?
Well, I think I know what you mean. I know I'm stepping down, as you know, but I'm sure my colleagues who are remaining on would be happy and great, would really want to hear from you guys. We don't just say it at XCOM that you guys are the most important communication source that we have. Please feel free, if you have a request, to send an email to the Board of Education. And if you have one in particular that you're more friendly with, send it directly to them. We tried to make a lesson for you to understand that we are accessible and things can get done. So we do care what you guys think.
So I think just from a process standpoint, I was just going to say, you now have our approval and our support to go forward and do your study. Like, show us that this is efficient, it's cost effective, and it's going to make a difference, right? If you come back and you show us those three elements, and then you say what it's going to cost to get it done and why that cost element is, exacerbated by the fact that of the efficiency element and the access for all students, then the cost probably doesn't matter so much. But that's what you're looking at now, right? You got to go back and say, this is efficient, it's effective, and the cost will be absorbed into the fact of how much faster kids will get through the student lunch line. Does that help?
Is there an instance where we can come with
Yeah,
all of that
You
information
would,
without
yes,
making this motion?
absolutely. So then what you would do is, when you're when you're done with your study, you would reach out to whoever the chair is at the time and say, I'd like to get back on the calendar because I'd like to present our findings. And then we put you back on the calendar, and then you would make a motion as to what you'd want to do. Like, you present your findings and say, I want to approve the scanner and it's going to cost us $10,000.
I was also going to say, as you know, you have board liaisons and the superintendent at your, monthly meetings as well. This is certainly something that you can add to your agenda item and can be discussed every month. And as we've mentioned, Joe and I, we're always accessible to you guys for any questions or discussions on things that you guys need. So it's certainly something that can be discussed at those meetings. And in the interim, you know how to get in touch with us as well. Ms. Kowalski brings up exactly, perfect
We'll help you with
points.
the process.
We'll help you. We'll help you. You won't be alone in this.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good night, guys.
Let's go. Well done. Example to all the students. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Do your homework. Exactly. Okay, capital budget motion to approve the proposed FY 25 capital budget requested of $118,590,000 as presented. Do I have a second? Christina, you will second that? Of course.
Baby.
Blaze, you're here. Look at you. Would you like to join us up front here? Oh, look at that. Big papers. Every time you comment, the papers are bigger.
Are they the same as the ones we got 2 weeks ago? Except for like one or two things?
Are we bringing out our wallpaper? I modified it with my own pencil.
You do need a.
I think that's.
Joe? How do you want to do this? Do you want to go through the sheets? Do you want me to go through changes,
Let's just talk about.
questions?
Well, why don't, we've seen it. Sorry, we've seen it in our last meeting. I think maybe we can just field questions. What do you think?
Yeah, that
Are you
sounds good
prepared
me.
to do that?
Any
Okay,
Questions? We also have Dan and Kimberly here too. So
perfect. Hello, Kimberly.
with the whole team.
Do we, who has a question?
Well, I guess at one point we talked about a question document. I saw that come out, but I don't know. The one I'm looking at doesn't have answers on it, so I don't know if I missed a.
No, we started on it. Most of your questions are actually answered, but we got some more yesterday. And then so the document wasn't quite completed. So we can go through them if you want.
Why don't we do that?
Well, I think some of them might be. It looks like some of them are addressed on your cover sheet. So I don't know. Maybe why don't you talk? Maybe you might want to talk first.
Oh, good. Oh, that's nice. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. Okay. You guys push the button. All right. So I'll run through the questions that we received, and we had like 98% answered, but I figured we'd probably go through them tonight. So the first question, like most of these are going to sound pretty familiar. Do we have a sense of the breakdown of the district placeholder number for like the $2 million on the ADA program? And so that question is, the answer to that question is yes. Where are we with ADA? We're probably not where Dan and I, when we first did the RFP, thought we would be. We're a little bit behind. But Via an RFP process, with also the assistance of the First Selectmen's Advisory for People with Disabilities Committee, we selected SPA for the district-wide assessment. We are just getting, as of just this week, the ADA study. It's been completed for all the buildings except for Old Greenwich, New Lebanon, Central Middle School, because they are already planned, and New Lebanon is brand new. Silver Petrocelli had previously done the assessment for just Western under a similar process. That overall, that school shows nearly like $8 million in the ADA compliance work for that school. The preliminary report that we have from Silver Petrocelli shows roughly each school between a $750,000 amount to up to about $5 million. So we're using roughly a $2 million mark. The goal here is the report will be ready in November. And so our thought is that tonight you're voting on our submission, but we would like to have SPA come do a presentation to the board. We would also invite maybe a member from the office of the First Selectman, since the board will be submitting to the First Selectman, but then the First Selectman's office will still have, like 2 months before it's actually being presented publicly to the BET, so that we could maybe work together on some of the numbers. But that way the report is just kind of still getting refined. But that 2 million is kind of a number in between, some of the schools at 750 to some to 5. So I think it keeps it fairly accurate within the 5-year window that the town looks at on the sheets, but it's not necessarily like each individual year yet, because we need to prioritize the results of the school. And before we share it publicly, I think we have an obligation to share it with our colleagues who helped us start this on the First Selectmen's Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities. They haven't seen it yet because we don't really have a final draft. That's on the ADA. Ideally, we would have one. The good news is that they're also just starting to do all of the parks and recreation facilities in town with the same logic and the same prioritization criteria. So we'll be getting us all kind of on the same page, piece by piece, on how we approach and define our priorities for our ADA requests. That's ADA. Does anyone have any other questions before I move on to the other ones? I'll just go through the list. So how many pieces of furniture are we expecting to get in the $300,000 for the furnishings program? This is the academic furnishings program that we are, this is part of a 2019 program that was put on hold, and then the funding was pushed out by the town. And so Dr. Jones met with the administration at GHS to go through systematically. It's based on a quote to do classroom by classroom remaining at GHS. The $300,000 is basically breaking up the remaining classrooms. I'm not sure how many classrooms that is per year at this point. I might defer to you, Dr. Jones, on specifically that program, but it's trying to make that into a more tolerable and stable number, but still advance the program.
Yeah, it basically, the quote is $1 million to complete, as where the quote is sitting right now. So we're looking just at a third. Right now, only a third of the building was completed in 1819. So we've gone room by room to see which rooms actually still need to be upgraded. And when we go back out again, that number will probably go up. Past $1 million. It could be a 4-year implementation, just simply what we know is going on in the furniture industry right now, and shipping and everything else.
Okay. The next question is on the Julian Curtis Building Committee project. What is the extent of the cafeteria work we're doing at Julian Curtis? And are we changing the footprint or keeping it interior? The program here, the cafeteria at Julian Curtis, is the smallest of the full district. The building committee is still working through the design. This program is not an expansion of the building. I don't think they exactly know where it's going to be. Joe, I don't know if you have any more information compared to that at the moment on the cafeteria, but what we do know is that this is not an expansion project. It's really just a better utilization of the existing space, essentially. Now, there could be some slight alterations, but I think
Not sure yet. Still planning stages.
there's no design. Where they are at right now, I did speak with the chairman of the committee, Bill, and they talked to the architect, and they still said with the information they have at the moment, the $2 million number is the reasonable number to still proceed with. Is that accurate? This one, I'll come back to this one because I didn't know what that one was. And I'll have Dan. Dan, I'll have you come answer the question in a minute about the plumbing program in 1 second. You had a couple ones on here, Mike, that were about fiscal year 24, but it's fiscal year. Okay, I'm going to just skip those. All right, I'm going to skip those. So I think another important question is, given that we seem to average a plumbing emergency every few years, are we confident in the plumbing program, plumbing and electrical program we've presented? And then two, separately but related, are we comfortable that the drainage analysis for the property will adequately identify the needs for preventative maintenance? I will answer the question on the drainage program. The drainage program is specific to the infrastructure exterior to the building. This is all the underground piping. I think what we've done here is, it's a difficult question to answer because we have no idea what it looks like, probably in any way, shape, or form underneath the property on the drainage infrastructure. But the goal here is we selected what we know from institutional knowledge are the most problematic areas and put those forward to start with fiscal year 25 to do the underlying camera work. And we should be able to address the most problematic schools. And then we'll find out. The camera work, though, should give our team the information that they really need to have for the drainage program. Dan, do you want to come up and talk about what we're doing with plumbing and electrical, where we've been and how we're confident we are?
That's a loaded question.
Dan can answer that.
So the what is the exact question? I don't want to go too far, but
It's just right there. How do we feel about our plumbing?
so again, it's kind of a loaded question. The average plumbing emergency every couple of years. The plumbing emergencies that we've had have been broken pipes. It's broken connectors. None of this really would have been something that would have been captured by a maintenance program. It's just it's an accident. It's we are looking at pipes that need to be replaced. For instance, the piping at Parkway School hasn't been problematic yet. We know there's old pipes there, and we're building that into future budgets. What we're looking at here is really the budgets that we put in here now are like the systematic replacement of known fixtures that are outdated. Toilets, urinals, flushometers that we can no longer get parts for, any known sinks that are outdated, things like that, art room sinks that continue to be a problem. Over the years, we have, unfortunately, maybe we've purchased lower quality materials than we should have. And I don't mean that across the board, but we did have an accident at Cascade that was probably attributed to that. So that's where we are in that. And the same thing goes with electric. We may be
Hey, Dan, before we go into electric, Christina has a water question.
I have a water question. I know it comes up every year. In terms of water sensors, I know we've talked about them in the past because they're, just the expense of them. When is it the time to do them? Can we afford them? Just kind of, if you could speak to the water sensor issue, that would be lovely.
So, the unfortunately, some of the problems that we've had, for instance, at the high school outside of the Performing Arts Center, that was in an area where you probably wouldn't put a water sensor. Water sensors are usually used in mechanical areas or in areas that are known to going to have maybe large volumes of water where storage tanks are, hot water heaters. You wouldn't necessarily put them in the bathroom because we clean those floors. There is water associated with those areas. So we have added water sensors, and I wasn't prepared to talk about it tonight, but anytime we're going to be doing any kind of upgrades in any mechanical spaces, we're adding water sensors, and those sensors will be tied into our BMS, our building management system. So if there is a leak detection, our first responders, my first responders, the tradesmen will get an alert and respond accordingly. Sure.
Okay, Karen,
I don't know a lot of
electric question? Pump.
Thanks, Dan.
I just have a question regarding the sheets, and maybe I'm looking at them wrong and how but so if I were to look at page 12 and 13, and this is particularly with respect to the ceiling and lighting, we say that the expense, what we're asking for 2024, 2025 is 2.385 million, which matches what we were looking for on the sheet. But then you've got at the number that's on page 12 says for this project, we're asking for 2.326 million.
No, yeah. So on the sheets, what they added here is what they're looking for is how much variation has there been if this was a project that's been ongoing. So in the fiscal year 24 approved budget, this was shown in what fiscal year for how much next. So last year, this is showing we had this exact program in 25 because it's an every year program for 2.326 million. So on one sheet, you can see, okay, last year you were looking at 2.3 million. You're still around 2.3 million. It just puts it in one spot so you don't have to go back and look at the book.
Oh, I see. So the number above this block part in this page here is what it was on the calendar for last year. So
Yeah,
it has
in the
zero.
approved fiscal year
So when
24.
So I see. So when it has a 0 in there, it's what we didn't have that.
It means
before,
it
and we're
didn't
adding-
have anything
Okay,
in.
now I'm
Yep,
following it.
yep.
Sorry about that.
There wasn't one.
Okay.
And
Blaze, those numbers were for not just what was in our budget, but what it was in the final budget.
It's in
for
the
town.
final,
It wasn't just what we, like, if we
yeah,
asked for
right,
something, it
it's-
got cut and it's a 0. It's
The
not
book
that
on
we asked for 0,
town
it's that
book.
the town
Yep.
gave us 0.
Okay, understood. Okay.
whatever was in the approved fiscal year 24 final capital budget for the town.
Right, because they approve it for a, whatever, the 15.
It's the
year-
15-year plan
15-year
that's in the
plan.
book. So they're saying, where was this? Like, so on the top corner, just for reference too, these are from the town. These sheets, like if it's not on the 15-year plan at all, and then it's a new project. That's
you.
what that definition is. If it's not a new project, then the fiscal year 24 project was reflected in, should be filled out. Those are the main items. Since we've been having this discussion about capital, we did include, thank you for the suggestion on just a summary sheet on the small changes we have made. There haven't been too many. We did break out we got rid of the wording for phase 2 for Cardinal Field because I think it's getting kind of confusing, and we kind of narrowed down specifically what we're talking about. There's no field house on there, but we pulled out the priority, the bleachers and the road. This will obviously kind of be an item for the board to discuss for a longer conversation about what the vision becomes of Cardinal. We did include some funding, as many of you have expressed that if we were going to do anything out of phase 2, the key thing would be the road. We haven't really studied the road in a number of years at this point and at length. So we're proposing $75,000 to actually have someone come in and just look at that and maybe give us a better, more realistic assessment of the situation. There's some overlapping here between Central Middle School and Old Greenwich, and also interim requests. But at the previous meetings, we had thought we should keep it in until those are actually funded. HVAC, we made a slight reduction where we have some American Rescue Plan funding that we can use. So that's why you see us only asking for 50,000 to keep the design going. Playgrounds was further refined from Parks and Recreation.
Karen wants to jump in with a question.
Please.
It goes to your comment on interim. So we have a couple of interim requests that are being voted on tonight. Are they also here in this?
The only one that is the Hamilton HVAC item.
So it's Hamilton.
Oh, actually, no, it's
there's
Central Middle
three.
School.
There's three, right? There's Hamilton Avenue,
Yep.
Old Greenwich, and Central.
Central Middle School. Oh, yeah, okay, but you
No,
have outstanding interim requests of Central Middle School that's in this plan.
That's my question. My question was, I wanted to understand which interims that we've either already voted on or about to vote on are included in this packet, as opposed to the separate ones that are also being voted on later tonight. That's what I
a
want.
good question.
Interims that are floating out there that this board has submitted already are the Central Middle School, which is for the amount without escalation in it. So that's the 42 million. That is also here, but with the escalation amount in it, which we did coordinate with the chair of the building committee to use the number from Turner on the escalation, slightly rounded. So if it's in here, it's the 49.5. If it's the interim, it's the 42 million. Same thing with Old Greenwich. Old Greenwich has an outstanding interim request. And then in this plan is the inflation escalation number on the capital plan if it's not funded as an interim. And then tonight, the one double counted item is the Hamilton Avenue HVAC request, which was a capital request last year that the board approved. The first selectman kept in, and the BET budget committee had left in, but the full BET committee had taken that out, but they had given us the instruction that once there was more information to come back for an interim. So that item is dual counted.
So Blake,
those are the three interims.
if you could, I'm going to ask you to do a little math here. If you take the both Central Middle School, OG, and the double counted Hamilton Avenue HVAC, could you tell me what our capital budget would be that we're proposing here if you took those three items out?
I just did it, Joe.
I knew you would.
23,890,000 net of those three projects.
Thank you.
For everything else.
And
Could you say that
26
number
of the
again,
one-
please?
That would be 23,890,000.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good question. That is and now you will see a difference slightly on the HVAC. The HVAC in here, one, it's really hopefully just a placeholder, but that's the capital request for the equipment. So there would still be some of an interim anyways. The interim is a larger amount because we're seeking the current operational, the reimbursement, because we currently had the system fail and we have the unit there right now that's supplementing the building. And we also had we had to have the studies done and the assessments. So the dollar amount in the interim is actually the total cost. What, for example, the facilities budget is already currently carrying as a result of the emergency versus just the capital placeholder, which is just the amount of the capital piece of that project. And the only other one was we had added the $3 million, but this is in fiscal year 29. Which is for the windows, but we really need to do a better, which we have in here is an assessment of a better environmental assessment of the window contamination at the high school
But that's fiscal
before we
29,
come up
right?
with a better plan.
Yeah, we'll leave that to another discussion, fiscal 29. Any questions about?
Maybe
what we
you'll be
just talked-
back.
We'll be back.
Maybe you'll be
I
back.
will not be back. Any more any questions, Kathleen?
It's more just a comment. And I mean, Christina already did the math, but I think that if you, like you said, if you take out the OG CMS and the double counting, if you will, of the HVAC system, you're at 23 million, which is frankly kind of where you're supposed to be in terms of maintenance, right? I always talk about the number that it's I think it was a certain percentage of our asset value, right? And that always came in sort of the 20 to $30 million range. So it seems like you nailed it. I don't know if you knew that number and that was supposed to be how you kind of came down to it, but you got to it, and that's impressive. So I think that I'd love to just sort of go forth with, and you've done a lot of great work. And I know that the budget committee didn't meet, but it seems like you sort of did a lot of work anyway, to get us here. And I appreciated the changes and my big chart. So I'm pretty good as it is. Thank you.
Did you want to call the question as well?
I'd like to make a comment before you call the
Of course.
question.
Go ahead,
But
Karen.
Christina, did you have a comment? Because you were.
I was gonna say, let's not forget about Cody. If you had any questions. It's just, forget, I know,
I think he's
giving him
long
a
gone,
moment.
Given the 5 hours ahead. No, I echo Kathleen's comments. Doing it in this fashion, I know we've done it now for a couple of years now. It's much easier to follow, and I appreciate the vision going forward of what we're actually voting for and how it's going, being submitted, and the detail that goes into each of the projects, because before we were getting something like this, while it's helpful to cross-reference, and this is a beautiful chart, by the way, and I've been walking around with it for weeks. I do really think that this is quite comprehensive. And I think that the $28 million that we're asking for is well within the range of funding to keep up the maintenance of schools for 15 schools in the district. And I think that's really great. I also understand why we're doing a double of Old Greenwich and the HVAC system and CMS, which I get why we're doing it. We did it last year for the same reason. However, as everybody knows, I have an issue with CMS. I do. Darn, I'm sorry. Look, I think we need to do great things for that school. My third kid is coming through this school already. I fundamentally disagree with the scope. So that's why I have trouble including with it. But I did want to voice my support for all the work that went into this, the support for Old Greenwich, and the support for CMS in general. Just wish it was a different scope, but also the appropriate funding for this 15 schools. So thank you.
And, Karen, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just had a quick question then. Karen made a good point that there's some of the stuff is here double counted. So do we need, the quick question I have is because the motion you made was for the full number, which included the double counting. Do we need to revise that motion just to say that
No,
number will
because
be removed?
I'm sure other entities, if they give us the money, will happily cut it out of here for
Okay,
us.
that's all I wanted
I
to double
don't
check.
think we.
Just checking.
Very
Karen made a
good question. And Karen, every opinion is welcome. So thank you for sharing your opinion. And
I always
believe
do.
I believe I can now call the question. Do we, I'd like to, all in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor. Any against? Any abstentions? We have an abstention. So 6, 0, 1. Thank you. Okay, Blaze, you're still up there. Don't go anywhere. Let's see, the FY25 food service capital budget. I will make a motion to approve the proposed FY25 food services capital request of $140,000 as presented. Do I have a second? Karen will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
I think we should let Blaze explain it at least, like, for the record, what we're doing, what we're voting on, because we didn't really have a budget discussion. I know some of us had conversations with Blaze about it.
Yes.
Give us the elevator speech, the down and dirty, like 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a very simple request this year. Last year, I think it's important to note that the school lunch capital program was moved out of the general fund and was moved into the school lunch fund. And so it's sustained it's accounted for in the school lunch overall fund program. This is just the capital element of it. So we're doing it here separately from general, which would be the first year that you've seen it this way. Very simple request for fiscal year 25. The number one request here is a walk-in refrigerator freezer for Western Middle School. They're seeking to replace it by getting the funding for 25. You're kind of still talking about a significant time frame out. And then we kind of got rid of a lot of the out year, all the little tiny bits and bobs, and we're doing a full reassessment of the overall school kitchen program. So you only see another small request of $10,000 for like a couple of the oven replacements or something while we do some refining.
Why is this separate again?
This was moved last year by the town out of the general fund capital and in to be funded by the school lunch fund capital. The school lunch fund has a very rare thing happening because of the pandemic. It has a surplus in it temporarily. Normally every year the town has to make a contribution to the school lunch fund. They haven't had to, slightly because the excess funding it's been getting from the high participation rate. But basically it's just going to be a different accounting where instead of funding it directly through the general fund, it'll just have to be funded through a contribution to the lunch fund.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That looks like 7 in favor and 0. So unanimous again. I like the unanimous stuff.
And Joe, I do really want to thank the staff. They did a lot of work on this. Mike's here, we had a whole crew going through all this. Kim was over there. Kim did literally a ton of work to get this all organized in this format. So really happy with all your feedback and ideas going forward, but I think we're really headed in the right direction. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Can you discuss with us the monthly financial report?
I can.
Thank you, sir.
Look at me. Not used to being this early.
Make this new poster.
Yeah, I'll make a big poster for this one next time. Let me get your new one for. Okay, monthly financial report. So right now, this I think is the first financial report you're seeing, and again, very open to feedback on what you want to see in the financial report. If there's something that's more helpful, we can change some things. We're getting to a place where we really have some good data manipulation. At the moment, you'll see that general fund revenue, we have really strong preschool tuition revenue again. And also the Medicaid revenue is on track to actually potentially exceed the budgeted revenue. The Medicaid revenue is just an important one to note because we can draw down the increased expenses off of that revenue. So it's good to see that Dr. H has been doing a lot of work to make sure that she's really getting every Medicaid dollar she can. And we can apply those directly back to the program. Operating budget, overall, outside of a really one key area, is fairly stable at the moment. It's a pretty routine spot, except for special ed. Special education, which we'll talk about later, is really the number one pressure that's really significantly over budget at the moment, and primarily in a couple of key areas, which is the out-of-district tuition. There was, which we can dual cover, but basically the primary reason for that is there was a age extension passed by the state legislature that was passed in June, and it took effect immediately this school year, and it extended the age that a kid, before they transition to state coverage, they stay in the local school from their 22nd birthday to the school year in which they turn 22. That extension impacted a few high cost out of district tuition placements that we have, almost nearly it's like $950,000 in unanticipated cost from that age extension. It's challenging a lot of districts around the state. Utilities keep outpacing, but hopefully we have a year like we did last year. Capital, you'll see we have all of our new capital funds. And if you exclude that just got appropriated on July 1. If you exclude that, we're only at 32.8 million. The school lunch fund, there is no universal free lunch this year, but we do have universal free breakfast and free lunch for kids on free and reduced right now. New Lebanon is a universal free lunch school because of their automatic qualification. In terms of revenue, we're expecting one more strong year of the cash in lieu of commodities program because it's based on volume and it's 1 year in the rear. So we've had significantly higher participation rate as a result of the universal free lunch program. That's why clock keeps coming in so much higher than normal. And that's been good for the school lunch fund, especially as we're funding maybe some other potential unexpected items. Like we had the truck breakdown and it's going to have like a $33,000 repair. I'm looking at Ann just to make sure we had a $33,000 repair that fund's going to need, but luckily we'll have a strong fund balance. And again, really the primary pressure at this point on the budget outside of anything, all the routine items, is really just the special education budget. We had the $1 million change. We have Constellation Services, which is nearly $500,000 under budgeted. And then the IDEA benefits, which we'll talk about later, are under, it's not enough to cover the benefit allocation that we usually pay to the town. So outside of that, I'd take any questions on the current status of the financial report.
Kathleen.
Remind me again, how much did we historically need to have the fund kick in on food services? I know it's prior, but it's relevant to why I'm going to ask. Like, was it a couple $100,000 or $1 million? I can't remember now.
It's historically been over $500,000. The last few years, there was a budgeted $843,000 contribution, I believe. And then the contribution, the program in COVID year, in the flux year, was like 1.059 million, but the town didn't make any of the contribution to the fund, which I actually didn't know that was going to happen, but they didn't make any because there was actually a slight surplus. There was no deficit. So they didn't make the contribution to the fund because it has a surplus in it. They only make the actual budgeted contribution if the fund, runs a deficit.
Right. And so they had budgeted for it and it was money that they didn't have to actually kick in.
And this year, right now, fiscal year 24, the town didn't budget for any contribution to the fund in their usual program.
Right. So that's helpful as we go for, it's a zero sum game really, right? So as we go for these other things, especially as we go cost overruns on special education, well, the good news is that because of the federal savings from the food lunch program, maybe we're
and on special education too, primarily the state slightly increased the reimbursement formula for the excess cost. It's very small for Greenwich. But also because with this increase in cost, there's also some revenue coming back that goes to the town. The town has budgeted this year 1.8 million for the revenue, which would be basically about 100% of the expected cost. And that's up significantly for two reasons. One, because the costs on the other side are going up, and two, because Dr. H has been, the way I understand the program, working to very aggressively make sure that we're filing or doing the programs that make the reimbursement, make the services eligible for reimbursement when it makes sense.
Great. That's great.
So
Thank you.
so on the special ed costs, right? And we noted it significantly last year when we had to go. It basically paid for itself. And I think an important thing to note is that we do return, if we don't need the funds or something, you do return them. Last year, we essentially all in, by the time we were done, still returned about $1 million out of the whole entire budget back to the general fund too. So that was basically the interim that we had gone to ask for. So.
Christina.
Please. I know I had mentioned this to you before about ARP. Which
I have it.
You have, which is
we can
usually
hand it
part
out.
of our financial report, and I said it was missing.
Jonathan, I'm looking at you. Could you hand it out for me? Can you hand out the ARP? It's the other form up there. Thanks. So you could take a look at it. When I come back, you can ask me questions, but Kim's done a lot of great work on tracking ARP. And I think everything, it takes us a little longer to prepare ARP because ARP is actually just like one lump sum. So in Munis, it's just one account. So she's manually making it look like everything we're used to looking at. So it looks like our budget and we can understand it by fiscal years, but it's not actually set up that way. So it just takes a little longer to actually produce it. But that's the current status as of October 13th with our artificial budget by fiscal year. It's not on one. I got you too used to the big ones. Yes. I know. But we will also post it to board docs tomorrow, Christina, as we handed it out today. Okay.
We'll review that. And
Yeah, so we'll post it. And we'll print it on the map printer.
for time's sake too, we'll examine that between the next now and the next meeting.
Thank
and
you.
then discuss it then. All right, great. And I'll conclude the questioning by saying, has there been any budget transfers?
There's no action transfers, but there are some small informational transfers.
That's the next topic of
Yep.
budget transfers. Thank you.
Are there any questions on them?
I don't think so.
Otherwise, it's fairly straightforward as presented. They're small.
Good. No questions? Then Blaze, I think you're maybe up late. Are you up later as well?
Yeah.
Yes, you are, of
Yeah.
course. Yep, on your action.
I got excited. I thought I was in the beginning for once, but you guys still put me at the end.
And you're up. Come on in,
Thank you.
October 1st, 2023 official enrollment update. Please. Jackie, you watch how long it took us to get to you?
No, I'm just checking to see how late it is after my bedtime because I usually go to bed at 8:30 or 9 because I get up at 4. So I was just looking, just checking. So I'll give you the quick overview that I think are the salient points.
Nice.
The total enrollment as of October 1st, based on the data that we have collected and that goes to the state, is 8,611 students. 29 of those students are outplaced, and that is a decrease of 10 students. Our grades 10 and 11 are our largest grade levels. 32% of our student population is identified as having high needs. 19.6% of them are identified as free and or reduced lunch students. And that is up from last year. We have a higher population of students receiving free or reduced lunch. For special education, we have 64 more students this year who have been identified as special ed students, for a total of 1,284 students. And as you know, those numbers continue to grow, ebb and flow during every year. Our English language learners have really increased this year as well. We increased by 65 students, and now we have 475 students who are English language learners. Over the past 10 years, we've had an increase of our races that identify themselves as 2 or more races, from 3.6% to 6.3%. 34.8% to 40.6% other than Caucasian have been identified, so that race group is growing. Our Hispanic group has also increased from 19.7% to 23.4%. For our racial imbalance, Hamilton Avenue, New Lebanon, and Old Greenwich are racially imbalanced because they exceed the 25% variance from the rest of the district. This year, our impending schools are ISD, Julian Curtis, and Parkway, and Western has now gotten off the impending imbalance. So that has helped us maybe with our racial imbalance. And note I say maybe.
Chart here. You said Old Greenwich is, but on the chart it says it's kind of in the same category as impending.
It is. That's why I said it's on the impending. It's on the impending list. And also I want to say that over the next 10 years, our population for school-age children is pretty balanced. It's not really going to change. It'll just fluctuate a little bit. So we're on a pretty even trajectory.
Michael, you put your hand up first.
So in the interest of time, I just want to ask one question I just want to clarify. So on page 13 of the report, so speaking of racial imbalances, of course, is a topic we're going to continue to talk about, and I know administration has some new plans. Am I reading this right in that of our magnet schools, due to the magnet program, some of them are actually going in the wrong direction, right? The magnet program is making some of the schools more imbalanced, not less. Is that fair to say?
I would say that it fluctuates. It depends on who is moving from what school to what school.
Right. But New Lebanon, like last year, we actually made it less diverse. Okay. Okay.
We didn't make it less diverse.
It became less diverse as
It
students
became less
used
diverse.
used the magneted
Right.
elsewhere.
Correct.
Any further questions?
Well, not about
Karen?
racial
Or just about in general in this topic? No. Yes, enrollment report. That's our topic.
Oh, okay. So I did have three quick questions. I know you mentioned earlier that our out of district students, tuition students have gone down 10 from last year, which is fantastic. I just didn't know if that is, if that's due to students aging out and graduating, or maybe moving out of the district, or any of those students have moved back into GPS.
It's a combination. Some students have aged out and some students have returned.
Also, I know, much like the rest of the state and the country, our number of students needing special education has increased. But I noticed especially in second grade. So do we think this might be due to the improvements made in early identification tools?
I would
And
say
training,
yes.
or we got more?
I would say
So
yes.
that we're catching more students
Mhm.
early. That's
Mhm.
great. And then I guess lastly, this is a separate one.
Seriously, you guys, obviously this is not to be fast. I need to eat.
Pizza break.
And here I was thinking you were chuckling at my question, which I thought was actually kind of important. So just to highlight, since you guys were giggling during pizza, that the number of students in second grade in special education is increasing. It's probably because we've gotten better at identifying them. with
Absolutely.
improvements. I think that's awesome. And then I was just curious because we don't know list anywhere in here our technical high school AIT. So I just didn't know if you know how many students are enrolled there.
I know there are, but I don't have the number offhand. I will get it to you.
Thank you.
Everyone's welcome.
Good. Christina?
Thanks. So I don't know if this goes as like to Tony or to Ann. So we have all this information, and then when we do our projections for next year, but now we have this changing kindergarten age. And I know we were talking about we got our other report from Dr. Prouda. So if you want to just kind of talk about how that's going to be approached, would be, I think, helpful to everyone.
I'll let Dr. Jones take that one.
So I've been working on this issue because it does have operating budget, impacts and in staffing. And right now with our children who fall in that range for September, October, November, December birthdays, we have sent a form out to the families who are in our pre-K currently, and they have let us know there are three options. One option is that they do already know they want to stay another year in pre-K. The next option is they would like to request to go to kindergarten, and the way the legislation is written, we can look at their assessment data, readiness data, and we'll work with those families. And then the other option is, I really don't know, it's too early in the year and they want to have conference and have guidance at the end of the year. So we're getting an idea, and right now it's about a third, a third, and a third. And we also pushed it out to the broader community. We'll continue to do that. They ran a story, I think it was the Free Press that actually pushed out the link for their form, trying to get those families that are out in the private pre-Ks as well. So it will have an impact for sure. It's going to probably impact the number of kindergartners that we have. So it'll probably be a lower year for kindergarten. And then the next year will probably get slammed because you're going to have a bigger year. So I expect our projection to probably be a little off, next year for kindergarten.
Karen?
In that same vein, we know that there's a lot of individuals within our district that redshirt, lovingly that term, they're students anyway. So with this change in age in kindergarten, I didn't have a chance to do a full deep dive in Prouda's report. Is that something that they're considering going forward with the change in kindergarten that may skew for parents with other children who may want to hold them back so that they're right aged? Children that have already gone forward, but or this year that may want to right age them in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I think going forward, it will look similar to what it will be like next year. I think you're going to have parents that September 1st is pretty early. Most other states in the United States use September 30th. So we went with a pretty early date in Connecticut. So I think, right. So I think the request is probably still going to be there, and it probably will continue to impact kindergarten. What you don't know is how many students and where are they? So you may go from class sizes of 23 to 19. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have a teacher to add into pre-K. So we're having to build in an additional pre-K section for next year.
Actually, Karen, it goes to you. Where are you seeing that there's an increase in second graders for special ed? Is in this document, or is it in a different document?
No, it was listed in here. I can go back through and look on the page if you want to give me a minute or two.
Well, I guess my only comment, I have a comment on that, right? Perhaps it is by purposes of earlier intervention and finding needs in younger grades, but I would hope that we would track that going forward, right? Because over time, that number should decrease if the early intervention is working and those children are able to compete with their peers on that level, right? That's the overall goal. So I think if we're having that data, we should be watching it, because ideally that number should decrease over time, unless we are lumping special ed as a broader category than just say a learning disability.
Well, it is
larger than that.
It is larger. That's what I was saying. A lot of students that if it's not something like dyslexia, for instance, which is often captured, and I think Mike would probably speak well to this too, it's like in second grade, when they get to students that can hide some of their learning differences and can keep up with it, once the rigor increases when they hit middle school or high school, that's when they start to really have trouble and are recommended for review to see if they need any additional support. So it depends on the different disability you'll see at different levels, but
weeds, but you're both right. It's probably a longer academic conversation. Yeah, it is a good number to track.
Yeah, we have a brand new MTSS process, which is part of the Special Education Action Plan, working with Mr. D'Amico's team. And what we do know, and Dr. Hollygenthaler and I have talked about this a lot, we were artificially low because if you remember, if you go back a couple of years ago, one of the big complaints we got was that students were just staying in intervention for years, and that, from a parent perspective, they felt like it was a culture of no, where we would not take students to testing. And given that we were at about a 10% rate, significantly lower than anybody else in Fairfield County and the state, we would say that that's correct. And now that's one reason we've added more special education students over the last few years. And we do have a really well-defined MTSS process. It's still a growing process because it's complex, but the teams are doing a really, really good work with that.
Any other questions since Joe stepped out? You're just eating your pizza. Okay. Thank you, Anne. Okay, our next item is Mike with our tech summary. If you want to come on down. I said Mike instead of Michael. Sorry. I don't know. Everybody's got their personal pet peeves about their name. So
that pizza is good. I'll take you up on that right after this. Yep. Okay. Good evening, everyone. So happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Yeah. Did you know that since 2004, the President of the United States and Congress have declared the month of October to be Cybersecurity Awareness Month? Yeah. So in the interest of cybersecurity, my tip for tonight would be, If anyone ever emails you asking for any sort of financial information, such as credit card or bank information, be aware, be cyber aware of the strong possibility that this is a scam. If the email came from someone you know, please follow that up with a phone call before you disclose any sensitive information over email. So, yeah. Now, with that, hello, my name is Michael Teng, and I work in the Board of Education IT department. Before we begin, I would like to thank the board and Dr. Jones for the opportunity to speak tonight. I know that we're here primarily to discuss education and that time is limited, so I will just hit the highlights from the Technology Executive Summary Report. Excuse me, let's get started. So from an IT perspective, our school district is a large environment. We have 17 locations through the town of Greenwich with over 3,000 computers, over 600 smart boards, and we have over 1,100 wireless access points. And there are over 10,000 devices connected to our Wi-Fi on any given school day. Now, with all of this technology, there must be proper support and maintenance to make sure everything keeps running smoothly. Last year, we received almost 14,000 documented IT support tickets at the help desk. This is in line with our running average over the past couple of school years. Now, with 14,000 tickets in the system, how many of those were completed in a satisfactory manner? This is where it gets really interesting. So the year before, the Board of Education IT department had a satisfaction rating of 98%. At that time, I was wondering, 98%, that's really high. How can we possibly beat that this year? Well, here we are a year later, and the rating actually went up. I'm very happy to report that support satisfaction for the 2022-23 school year was 98.8%. Yeah. Now, how do we calculate that satisfaction rating? Support satisfaction is calculated through voluntary surveys that are provided after a support ticket is closed. Last year, we received 495 responses, and of those, 489 were happy with the work performed. Now, speaking of being happy with performance, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Anthony Stempian, who worked so many hours and in fact is still here tonight managing all of the technical aspects of this meeting. Hey, Anthony. So I looked this up. 20 of those positive surveys were from teachers that were happy with Anthony's performance. So thank you, Anthony, and keep up the great work. So back to the summary. I'd like to talk a little bit about the major project for this year, which is our disaster recovery project. Now, this project has been needed for a very long time, and I want to thank the board for their approval to move this forward. What this project does is construct separate entrances at every school for a backup fiber connection that will run to a disaster recovery site. Now, this will provide some much needed resiliency in our school district's internet and Wi-Fi services, to the point where if the central office server room goes offline, the schools will continue to have service. So I'll sleep much better at night once this project is complete. So I'm almost done. 2 more minutes. Before I finish, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge a member of the Board of Education IT department. So we have a 20+ year employee named Karen Martin, who has dedicated most of her adult life to the support of our school district. Karen is an absolute rock star. And even after 20+ years, she's still the first person to log into our systems and help when something goes wrong. Karen is one of the biggest factors in the positive survey results that we've talked about this evening. I can't give Karen enough praise for the work that she's done and the work she continues to do day in and day out so that the students and staff here at Greenwich Public Schools are able to perform teaching and learning without interruption. So thank you, Karen, if you're listening. You are amazing. And I'm lucky to have you on my team. And that brings us to the end of my summary. I hope you found something in here useful, and thank you for listening.
Questions? Kathleen?
It's just more of a comment. I mean, I run a fintech firm, and people you only usually hear from people when things are going wrong. And you're right about cybersecurity. It seems to be a bigger and bigger issue every day. And the fact that, knock on wood, we don't hear from you much is a great sign.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have to say is, I mean, just as a tidbit, I know that the PSAT was given, I don't know, a week or two ago, and there were a bunch of parents that were texting in other towns because there was an issue. And I know that like a few schools were actually sent home, and they just sort of said, we're gonna have to do it again. And someone said, oh my God, is this happening? And I was like, well, I haven't heard from my kid. And nope, nothing. There were no issues at Greenwich High School, but there were at other schools, and it was all about the Wi-Fi and everything else. So thank you, because that was very stressful for many parents, I know. So
Christina?
I just wanted to say, the disaster recovery that you were referencing. So I kind of missed, I'm sorry, what the timeline is to have that project completed.
So that is a 2-year project that began back in July of this year. So it should be done June 30th, 2025.
But we didn't need additional funding for it. We got it all last year because I didn't.
Yeah, last year
we did,
there was
yeah.
talk about splitting it up into 2
Right,
years,
right,
but
and then
not-
we
but then
changed it. Okay.
eventually it was just one.
That's what I thought. I just wanted, when we voted, it wasn't on there. Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, Mike, I just want to say thank you for the last 4 years. There were no significant tech disasters, which would have made my job a lot harder. And so just knowing that I'll be concluding this meeting and a brief one after this, and if a tech disaster happens, everyone else has to deal with it. It won't be me. So for their benefit, please don't let that happen. But thank you for making nothing happen in my time serving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
All right. Excellent.
Thank you.
Great job. Pizza? Okay, let's do a little soil talk. Western Middle School soil.
I will keep it brief. We're very excited that we have Charter Construction on board. The contract is signed. Very grateful to the legal team who works with Bimbo Bakery and our Town of Greenwich Legal. There's always that indemnification clause that makes it a little more challenging, but the contract is signed and good to go. So now we will have access through that access road that goes across the bakery to come in the back of the property, which is really essential to make this, to make the construction planning and work go effectively. And there is a kickoff meeting tomorrow with AECom Langen Charter staff, where we should, in the next couple of weeks, start seeing things like trees getting marked and things of that nature. So again, they have a meeting tomorrow, and our next update will give you more.
Fantastic. Any questions on Western Middle School? Then we should move on. We're back to action. The moment everyone's been waiting for, more action. Let's see. Where's Blaze? Oh, here it comes. The interim funding request for special education. I will make a motion to approve the interim funding request of $2,528,982 for special education and student support as presented. And Karen will second that. Discussion. Blaze, please explain a little briefly where we are, and then we'll field questions.
Okay, thank you. And we have Dr. H with us, who will be able to answer most questions better than I can. But basically, as I just mentioned earlier in the financial report, the primary pressure point on special education is, or the primary pressure point on the budget is the special education budget. And the main request, the main driver of this request is a few things. One, we heard about the growth of special education students. And so this includes funding for 4 positions, 2 of which were required to be filled and already exist. 2 that are anticipated to be necessary, of which Dr. H can provide more information about why. The second part of this request is for $43,000. This is for professional services attorneys. We have funds for legal consulting in our budget, like every department in town does. We all consult with legal services as needed. What we don't have, though, is legal representation in court cases in which that gets outsourced. So we have a instance where we're being sued as a district for special education. And the town attorney, who is our attorney, brought in outside counsel, which is all logical. However, because it's special education, last year the town attorney did not pay for any of the representation. We absorbed all the cost, which was very unique. And then so we reached out and we ended up where the first selectman's office came up with this determination where they will split it 50-50. This is the only instance where that would be happening. But for the anticipated cost for that, this is the 50% of that court case right now. The district won the court case in the lower appeals court, and I'm looking at Stacy, but the family appealed and is now at the next level of federal court. And that's about $10,000 a month in attorney fees. The next piece is we mentioned Constellation Services. That's the $600,000. That's the OTPT outsourced vendor. The out of district is the big one. That's the 1.150. That's the 950,000 of that is for the age extension. 200,000 is for a move-in that SESS already knows. The family reached out and planned to coordinate with SESS. Special ed transportation, directly as a result of what we're talking about, is the corresponding increase for special education transportation. And then the benefits is the unique one. That's the IDEA grant. Last year, the IDEA grant was also short the benefits to cover. And we picked it up out of the operating budget. We paid the town, we transferred the town $400,000 to cover the benefits. This year we went to go do the same thing. And since this looks like it's a little bit more of a larger issue or multi-year issue with that grant, they kind of suggested that we should probably have a better accounting approach towards it, whether it's an additional appropriation in the town's 900 account, which is the benefits account that they pay for all the benefits. That would kind of be a determination on how they want to account for it. But at the end of the day, it's short 331,000. Stacy, am I missing anything as an overview?
Nope, that sounds perfect.
Okay.
Questions? Michael, you put your hand up first again. You're quick.
So my initial thought reading all these documents in order this week was, if in the enrollment report we're down 10 students out of district, why do we need an interim for out of district? And I think I heard most of the answer. It's because of the age extension. But then, so we don't, even though we're down 10, we can't absorb the other student, I guess. Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Stacy, you go.
Oh, so that's correct. So there's 2 pieces of that. The cost of the particular students, and when we budgeted last year, we were not anticipating full year costs for those students, and so the budget wasn't built anticipating that, as well as the increased cost of what the out-of-district placements are. And then we have several students who are in residential placements. So when Blaze mentioned that we talked about a student who is moving into the district, currently that student has a residential placement. And so that's a very high cost move into the district. So all of those are the factors in why we need the additional monies that weren't accounted for when we developed the budget this time last year.
And where are the new teachers going?
So we hired a teacher over at Old Greenwich this year. and at Glenville. Both of their numbers have gone up substantially between when we started budget process last year and at the end of the year. And then, as Dr. Jones mentioned, we continue to have enrollment and we keep qualifying students. And so we do anticipate that we have additional needs in order to keep the caseloads down and the services provided to students, as well as one of those other positions is a school psychologist position. We've, talked, it's come up a couple times even at tonight's meeting about the need for mental health support. And so being able to provide that.
The one piece I'll mention too is that if we do this, the routine process, there's not an emergency, the building's not flooding. So the interim would be, we're going to the Board of Ed now, then the BET would have the opportunity in November, and then the RTM under the normal process in December. So the reason this is coming now is for certain very required services like SESS, we want to avoid like last year where we had a budget freeze until we knew it was going to be appropriated, but the funds, by the time you get through the process, weren't, we didn't know until late April. And so it's already the end of the fiscal year. For the schools, the fiscal year ends in May because they have to start their next fiscal year budget. So the timing of this now are these required services, and we're not looking at knowing if there's an appropriation or what that amount will fully be through the process until December. And that's why it's here now. So it's November, December, fund access end of December.
Cool. Any further questions? Nope. Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. That appears to be unanimous. 7. Hey, Cody's popped in. Well, it's morning over there, isn't it? So 8-0-0. Did he vote? Oh, good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your vote. So you vote, okay, 8-0-0 passed. And now the next one is the interim funding request for Parkway Water Wellhouse Emergency. I'll make the motion to approve the interim funding of $400,000 for Parkway property water filter project as presented. Blaze and Dan are up for that one.
Need a second.
Oh, I need a second. Sorry. Kathleen, you're going to second it. Thank you. Okay. And now for discussion. Any discussion? Laura, fantastic.
So there's been a few different substances, I'll just say, found in the Parkway water over the years. Will this solution keep the water safe from, all different manner of things that have been found over the years?
Again, that's a loaded question. I mean, it's the system that's being designed right now is to remove as best as possible the PFAS. I'm not going to tell you what PFAS stands for. You can spend your time looking it up. There's an all.
Yep.
What he said. Right now, the filtration system is in design. It has to be reviewed by the state. And we will implement it. Unfortunately, it's a fairly robust system that will require us to build an additional building. Right now, we have a small pump house that's to the left of the school, between the school and the GEMS building. We're going to be adding a room, a building about garage size, about a 10 by 15 secure building. And we're waiting for the design, and I'm not going to say approvals from the state. They will nod their head in recognizing the system.
Kathleen.
I mean, I don't even want to think about the fact that I had 3 kids go there, probably drinking this water all those years. But it's actually one of the reasons I first got involved in the schools, because like going back to my junior in high school being at Parkway, you're right, there were issues with the water. And so there was it Foley's that was like servicing it every week? And so they So is that like, did that stop happening or just?
Oh, no, no.
Okay.
This is PFAS is kind of the new buzzword. It's been around a while. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but even the state regulators are having difficulties determining a standard.
The EPA hasn't even set the rules yet for the PFAS. So this is extremely proactive in testing. It's coming, but it's kind of like we tested for it. Really the town tested for it. They're not, Foley's is our certified pump operator with the state. So once we found it, the state only talks to Foley's. So then Foley's did the official test. They found it, and the state only has action levels right now because it's so new. And the EPA is still working on the rules. So DPH is kind of in an awkward role where they are advising on it, but they don't even have EPA guidance yet. So, but the system will be designed to filtrate underneath what's even only the recommended action level at the moment. But
unfortunately the water is deemed not usable until this is put in place.
I wouldn't.
Not drinkable.
There was a recommendation not to drink it. Okay. Nobody's saying it's poisonous or anything like that, but it was a recommendation, and we took the high side and we provide bottled water.
Anybody else? I'm good. All in favor, please raise your hand. Is Cody raising his hand? Yes. Yes, so unanimous 8-0. I love unanimous. This is great. Okay.
We have one more.
Thank you, Dan. Dan's up for the next one as well. Interim funding request for Hamilton Avenue HVAC. I'll make the motion to approve interim funding request of $3,200,000 to respond to the Hamilton Avenue School HVAC failure as presented. Do I have a second? Okay. Kathleen is the second. Discussion.
Okay, so I'll give some brief background and then Dan can give a lot more information than me. But the board did have a capital request for last year. It was removed. We did advise to keep the funding for this reason. But we were advised at the education committee meeting of the RTM by the BET liaisons to come back when we had more information about the geothermal system. Two things have happened since then. One, we do have more information about the geothermal system. And two, the geothermal system at Hamilton Avenue reached kind of a critical point this summer. We know that it was overheated in the beds. That was the problem. But the school was running consistently, even with air conditioning, I guess, running from the system over 85 degrees. To start school, we can't start school with temperatures over 85 degrees in the classroom when we got to late August. So on emergency purchase, we brought in a temporary unit, and we actually coordinated with the health department, got the appropriate permits. At the same time, since last year, and for years, Dan's been working on it, we had an assessment done of the geothermal system. This time we did it in coordination with the Energy Management Advisory Committee. They recommended a firm. That firm came, met with us. They were like, this is too much for us to look at. But we can recommend like this really good expert to take a look at it from Colorado. That was Farnsworth. I can't remember the other name of the firm. It was Bright something. I don't know. They brought in someone. This person came out. He was excellent. But did this assessment that you see before you. We don't have the related cost estimates yet. He's still working on it. But I think you'll hear from facilities is that it's not like we have this overwhelming, resounding statement of support about that existing system at Hamilton Avenue. And so we would be proposing to go to a more traditional system in line with the rest of our district. And so this request is encompassing, it's more than what's in capital. This is one of those double counted ones we talked about earlier. But this is covering the whole entire it's an interim request. So it's covering both the new proposal. We have roughly an estimate. They don't have the proposal. It's not fully designed yet, but they gave us that we're going to be somewhere in between, depending on the distribution equipment, 1.2 million. If the distribution equipment can be fully repurposed, to a max of 3 million. If it's like a worst case scenario. So we've settled in there with talking to the engineers at like a 2.5 million. The rest of the cost there is all the other costs. We have the HVAC unit that's currently there. It's being rented every month. We need to keep it there, so we have it. We had to bring in some additional work to have that unit run. You see the geothermal assessment, and all the engineering and design costs. Dan, did I miss anything on an overview?
I think you got it.
And any specific questions?
Well, I'll
Please
just
ask.
jump in first and then we'll jump to you. I know that it predates me, predates Dan, predates Tony, Kathleen. I'm not sure it predates you, but they've been having trouble with the geothermal at Hamilton Avenue for a very long time. Once and for all, I believe from our discussions that this will solve all problem. We don't have this ongoing issue year after year after year with our geothermal at Hamilton Avenue School. So this will once and for all end the headache of the system that didn't work up to satisfaction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Karen?
So my question goes to just the equipment and installation component, because that seems to be a number that is still somewhat of a variable at this point in time. So my question goes to, does it make sense to vote on this as an interim with that number here now versus waiting, because it could actually be more, it could be less, right? Because we'd ultimately have to give money back, and that's always presenting a bit of a challenge too. So would it make sense to have a vote that takes care of all of the amounts up until that point, and then when you have a firm number, we know what that is and vote on it at that point in time?
My recommendation would be to, at this point, since we are talking about still another 2 months on the process, so that we don't have any overlap between BET and RTM or BOE in the process, would be to appropriate the funds based on the information we have now that are relatively reasonable. And then by the time, I think what we're hoping that we have from the engineers is by the time we even get to the BET, we will have, which is in November, we'll have an even better number that we can give them before they appropriate it and send it to the RTM. And so I think we would ask that you send a reasonable number over, and then we work with them to then refine the number before it gets to the RTM, just based on the time frame. Because if we're going to get this fixed, the RTM doesn't like to get anything that the BET hasn't voted on. This way it keeps it in line, but we don't want to wait too long, because Dan's going to have to mobilize a whole team, go out to bid for all of this stuff, and we'll want it fixed in the summer so that we don't have another risk for school year impact. So that's kind of the thinking behind the timing and the process, but we can adjust the dollars. Also, capital, this would be put in a capital account, not our operating fund, and it can only be used the way the town will appropriate it. It can only be used for this very specific purpose we're talking about, and then any additional funds just get returned back to the capital non-recurring fund.
Michael?
So best case scenario, this is in place for September of next year? Is that what we're thinking?
That's the best case.
That's the goal. Yeah, we're going to actually try to go out to bid. If we get the appropriation in December, we're trying to have everything pre-purchased and lined up so that they could start right away.
Yeah, and that's the key there, is pre-purchasing. The HVAC industry is still having some delays. We've seen that. We did pretty good this summer, but there was still probably a 6 to 8 week delay on a normal delivery. So what we're planning at, what we'd like to do is pre-purchase the larger pieces of equipment, have that delivered. That would be ours, and then we put out for bid just the installation. And we've successfully done that this summer at Julian Curtis and at the ISD gymnasium. So we got lucky and we were able to pre-purchase items with ARP funding.
Yep.
So that's kind of the model we'd like to follow this year. If we don't have equipment ordered by, I'm going to say mid-January, we're probably not going to be able to have this installed for the summer. Maybe late January. It's, every day is going to count.
Kathleen?
So I think that answers the question because obviously the BET is going to say, well, then why wouldn't you just allocate it in your normal budget cycle? And the issue would be because you're in fact trying to, even though it's not going to, the work's not going to start and commence until the summer, you need to have it appropriated so you can go out to bid now, essentially, or January 1.
Yeah, if we left it in normal capital process, then we wouldn't have access to the funds until July 1.
We also have rental equipment that we're paying monthly charge on too, that we want to eliminate that monthly charge. How much is that monthly charge, Blaze? Do we know?
It's a little over 20,000.
About 20 a month.
And it's
In the winter, it's in action in 19 and dormant.
and it's a dysfunctional HVAC system in the school with we just heard with our highest percentage of high need students. So it's not a good look.
Okay. I'll call the question since there is no more questions. I will, all in favor, please raise your hand. And Cody, he's raised his hand, 8-0. Another unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Social studies textbook. You want to make that motion? Okay. Oh, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. I just want to mix up who's making the motions a little bit. Here you go. Okay, I have it right here.
I'm happy to make the motion to approve the Greenwich High School Social Studies textbook as presented at the September 21st, 2023 board meeting. Is there a second?
Laura has seconded it. Okay, discussion.
Do we need, I guess you had a question about whether we needed to name the textbook, or is it okay to say as presented? I was saying, we haven't done textbook in a while. I thought do we need to name the textbook as opposed to just an as presented? Because I had said that to you in the motion. There's a revised motion sheet, Karen. Since I was on the committee, can I make the motion?
Please. I'm sorry, I would have given
Please
you the.
withdraw your motion, Karen.
I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve the new social studies textbook, Comparative Government, for the AP course by Karen Waples. This is replacing the old textbook for the course AP US Government and Comparative Government and Politics for grades 11 and 12.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Cody, would you like to discuss something?
I was just gonna say, we got a copy. I had asked for it a few weeks ago, but we got a copy emailed to us yesterday. So I haven't had enough time to review it sufficiently.
Okay.
And do you know if you could answer the queries that he had at that time? You can. Okay.
Well, Cody, are you suggesting well, let me ask the question. Is there a deadline of any sorts that we have to address this? There is. Okay. Cody, would you like to convince or attempt to convince your board members, or are you asking to defer this to another vote? Because I believe I'm being told now there's a deadline on approving this textbook.
Well, if there were such a heavy deadline, I don't know why it took till yesterday to get a login to read it. I read the chapter on Brexit and I found it a little, not the best, but I wanted to give it a little more personal study. So, I would abstain from voting on it, but I'm sure others, form their own opinion.
Christina?
I'm just speaking as a member of the textbook committee, which was a number of teachers, a number of parents, and a number of students. It was unanimous that this was the right textbook. There are not many textbooks for this course, number one, and number two, that align with the AP, how it's proper to teach it. So the committee felt that it was the right textbook. It's vastly better than the one that they're using now. Just by way of information. I don't know, we did have a presentation, I think at our last meeting, but I just wanted to kind of remind everyone on the board that was the feeling of the committee, was that we had done the work. We had 4 or 5 meetings about the textbooks.
Karen.
I just have a comment, or I guess a comment question based upon Cody's on the timeline component, right? If we know that the timeline is on when the book needs to be approved, right? And subject to possible slippage, like what could happen or may happen tonight, is there a better way to time this so that we actually get more time as a board to go over it and ask questions, and particularly when we look for links, because it just seems like this is very much on a short time frame, and if we know we were teaching it the next semester, isn't there a better way to space this out so that there is more time for the board?
When we put it on the board agenda, we presented, we did say that this was for second semester.
No, I
We-
understand that. That's not my question. My question is, if you knew it was for second semester, why are we only getting it now? Why couldn't we have gotten it earlier, either later last year or earlier in September, in order to look at it? That's my point.
Kathleen.
I mean, Joe, would we have enough time if we put it on at the operating meeting in 2 weeks? Could we do it then? At the budget hearing?
If there's
It's
no,
not a hearing, it's just the presentation of the budget. So
but we'll at least give Cody the opportunity to glance at the book, and
Yeah.
we could just put it on as a quick vote. I'm okay with that. I just don't want to hit into any
But-
deadlines. That's why. I
Joe,
asked
you may want to vote on it anyways, because it's not like I'm just one person, right? So if
No, but I mean, you raise good, I mean,
No, and
I appreciate that you're raising good points.
I asked
mean-
for the same link, so
Well,
I-
okay, if it's no harm, no foul, if we could put it off 2 weeks, Anna, we have a problem putting this off 2 weeks? Tony, is there a problem putting this off 2 weeks?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, I was
2
just gonna
weeks
say,
is-
that gives
is
it-
fine.
Well,
does that
if
give the
everyone,
teachers enough time to go through it before they have to start teaching through it? Because it's,
The teachers actually were part
Okay,
of the
good.
committee and they
Just fine.
know what the book is.
All
The
right,
other
let-
reason they liked it is because it had so many resources for students at different levels. So it was really, the resources were excellent as well.
I just like to have my colleagues fulfill their desire
Mm-hmm.
to check in the book, and there's no problem with putting it off 2 weeks. So if everyone okay with that, let's take it off the action.
I agree. And in fact, can you now point me to the Brexit section? Because I'm truly intrigued.
What is it? Did he pick Brexit only because he's over there right now?
I think he has a new perspective because he's in London. I think so. That's why I want to hear it.
or maybe just because I'm a crazy right winger. I don't know.
Either way, it's cool.
All right, so we'll put it off for 2 weeks because there's no harm in doing that, and everyone gets to satisfy their ambitions to know more about the book.
Perfect.
All right,
We'll
thank you,
bring it
guys.
back.
Appreciate it.
So Christina, can you please withdraw your motion?
withdrawn.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And the next one is approval of the 2024-2025 school year calendar. I've had some opposition to having this
You
as
have to have
an,
the motion first
Oh.
and the second.
even if I'm thinking about withdraw or going to suggest withdrawing it, we have to make the motion first.
You have to make the motion so we can have discussion.
All right.
We can talk about withdrawing it.
Okay, so I'll make the, exactly. I will make the motion to approve the 2024-2025 school calendar as presented. Do I have a second? Christina's seconding. So there's been some
So
suggestions.
neither you nor I are going to be subject to it because we don't have kids in school.
Correct.
That's all the more appropriate.
That's right. So, so there's been a suggestion to put this off to another meeting, or at least discuss some points. Yeah. If
yeah,
folks wanna
I
make
think
those-
it's worthy of a discussion.
So
because I
Michael,
have
you're the
a
one who
couple
first
questions.
brought it up. Karen, you brought it up after Michael brought it up. So Michael, why don't I pass it to you for the beginning of discussions?
And I often think alike. Yeah, so we heard, I was concerned that it was an action item because I do think it's worthy of more discussion and whatnot. For example, and that was before we heard from PTAC talk about, raise some concerns at the beginning of the meeting about that Friday, first day of school on Friday. I understand the reasoning there, but it does present a challenge to families. I heard a lot of concerns about that. On the first day, I remember at kindergarten, there were a lot of people saying, why are we here? What's going on? There were a lot of upset faces. Two other things that I think might be worth thinking about, and putting that out in the public is because I'm sure we'll get comments and questions about it. I do feel the need to just briefly, because we talked about it last year, but I do think we need to talk about and make clear the issue of Juneteenth, because it is a holiday in Connecticut. I know the district decided last year to keep that here as a school day and observe it in school. It is only a matter of time before we get a number of pointed questions about that. That is something I think we need to be aware of, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about that not being a day off. The other question that I had, I might be the only one. I'm wondering about the professional development day on May 23rd, which is the Friday before Memorial Day. I'm just thinking, if I'm planning professional development day, just human nature and things, if that is the most productive day to support professional learning of our staff, or if a random day in March or whatnot, where we have some of the other ones might be better. So those are just three of my wonderings.
Karen?
Yes, two like minds. I had this two wonderings as well. And my comment was, I know this was presented to us at the end of last school year, but you know, I don't see much in the way of changes. I know I heard from a lot of parents questioning why we had our first day on a Friday. And I'd really love to go back and look at this and see what we can do to not have it for the majority of our students on a Friday, just especially before a long holiday weekend. It just lends itself to students not coming for their first day. Much like Michael, I had a question about Juneteenth. I know the state's, the law was that it's a decision that public schools don't have to close on Juneteenth, but if that's the case, each local school district makes that decision. But the law says if we remain open, we have to hold suitable educational programming in observance of the holiday, which I know we did this year, and I wanted to sort of hear how that went. I know we do that for Veterans Day as well, and I think it's actually a really great opportunity for our students to learn why these holidays are important. So I just, I wanted to make sure we're clear that that's what we're doing and how it went this year.
Do you want me to address
one
all
last
three of?
Sure. I have one other question at the end, but I'll get to that after.
And I just had one point. Did we forget Yom Kippur, or is that on a different day?
It's on a weekend, but
just wanted to make
I'm
sure.
going to a next, that's
Okay, just
direct
checking.
my next comment.
Okay, so I'll try to address all three. Starting the year is challenging. What we were trying to do this year was have 4 days so that we have actually really good professional development before the year starts. We have a lot of new implementation of curriculum that teachers are going to be using on the first day of school. We really utilized that well. And the other thing that our teachers were asking for was more time, especially in elementary. They need more time to get their rooms ready. So this year, all of the elementary principals submitted their schedules to Mr. D'Amico. They all had to have 12 hours of unencumbered time for teachers, which is a lot, so that they could really be ready to start the school year. And again, trying to release some of that stress and pressure that teachers feel. We also, we didn't have convocation after, surveying our staff. So it was a great start. Now we had our 6 and 9 orientation on the third, starts on Thursday. Then everybody's on the Friday. So if you're talking about nobody being in school, you've got to kick those 2 days somewhere else. And the one thing that we have in Greenwich that people do really like, and it causes more pressure on our calendar, is that full February break. Now we could move February break, to a different week. You'd gain a day back there, but I think people may not like that either. We also have the full, week in April, where most of our Fairfield County are not out the week in February. There's only about 2 or 3 of us. So it's just making decisions on, if the board wants to look at it differently. But the one thing we can't do, I don't want to do, is push the teachers back earlier, but not only just for the teachers, where they would come back that previous week. But I just want to point out that we don't finish summer school, if you look at this calendar, until August the 16th. And I cannot begin to tell you how difficult it is for facilities to get those buildings ready. And we not only run our programs, but we are really pressured for space because we run all the park and rec inside our buildings, and they just have to have time to get stuff ready. So it's a challenging calendar in that regard. For Juneteenth, I was really, really proud of what we did as a school district, in that I honestly believe, had we had the day off, most of our students and probably some of our staff wouldn't have had the level of understanding that they were able to get all the way through high school. They brought in speakers, and it was so well done. And before we actually started the planning, we took one of our leadership meetings for all of our administrators, and we brought in somebody to make sure that we all had a really good knowledge base as well. And that was very well received, and people appreciated that. So I didn't, for me personally, didn't have people complaining when they knew that we were focusing on it for a whole week. The other thing is professional development on May 23rd. Again, it's just like trying to pick your battle, because you don't want to be throwing it in there right before SBAC testing. That really stresses everybody out. You have AP testing, those first 2 weeks in May. It's just trying to find time. Time's just really a challenge, but that's how it landed there.
Kathleen, Kathleen's good. Oh, one more. I'm sorry. You were going. Yes, so go ahead.
Sorry. No, my last one was, I know we've talked about this before, but I'm not sure why the note, well, it's helpful that you guys added a note about that we shouldn't have athletic games or competitions, homeworks or assignments before recognized religious holidays, et cetera. But, and I know we have a homework policy already, as well as another policy, but I definitely think we really need to discuss having a regulation on this, because there's consistent confusion every year. And this is something that goes back for a long time. It's not a new policy. It's not a new discussion. It's just confusion every single year and it shouldn't just be athletic competitions. It should be, if there's arts, music, academic competitions, practice or presentations on those particular days. If we have a holiday that we're closed for specifically, we really need to have that as a discussion, to make a regulation. So.
Kathleen.
So, I don't know, Tony, you might have swayed me, because at first I was thinking too, I really didn't like the Friday before Labor Day, although it's become so ingrained. And frankly, if you have children playing high school sports, you're back anyway. So, I think it probably is different for people that have elementary school children, although, I don't know. I suspect some people just skip the Friday. I can't believe I just said that out loud, but I suspect that's what happens. So it's late. No one's listening, but, so I'm not, I kind of hear all your points, because, I think that taking away February break would be like we'd all be voted off immediately. That is so sacred in this town. And the week before President's Day is so crucial for airline reasons, airline pricing. So you can't touch that. And then you can't touch April break. And so you might have to start early, because you don't want to go too far into June. And if it doesn't snow, we'll be out before June 19th anyway. So
we need those days for students, especially those that take APs, because you can't lose a single day.
that's exactly right too. I mean,
But
when you
I
think
thought
about how fast they
about
have to move through the
pushing
AP
it
schedule as a result, when we start after Labor Day, I know in math in particular, it's a real issue, because we drop, every 8 days, and and a lot of like the Westchester schools don't have that same scheduling, and therefore they feel like they're always a little bit ahead on the math APs, although the results don't show it. But I know our teachers sometimes are worried about that. So that's another good point.
Well, once again, paying attention to the hour, what I'm going to do is, those are all great points and things that need to be discussed, maybe offline, maybe create some sort of dialogue between all concerned, and try to come to some resolution.
Well,
Yes,
I guess the
Christine.
question is, how are we going to do that? I mean, we kind of have to have our discussion as a group.
Well,
And then, no, I'm just saying, and to be honest, we should have voted on this last spring. So I think we can't just put it off again. And for any extensive period of time, but I'm not sure. And we could say we'll vote on it at the budget meeting. Like we just said, we're going to vote on it in 2 weeks, but we don't really have a path for how we're going to resolve these issues. We're just putting it in Tony's lap. I'm just asking the question, because I feel like, okay, we're all talking, but that doesn't really give Tony guidance for what the board wants. So I think I know it's late, believe me. So I just feel like we're kind of like, we're floundering and we don't have a game plan.
I think that is an accurate description. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think it's appropriate to put these wonderings out in the community, particularly since we heard PTAC talk about it. And is it the end of the world if we come back at the next business meeting and make it an action item then? I don't know. We're talking.
I'm
next
fine with
year.
it, but I'm just saying, but the problem is we're just putting it out there
Yeah.
as a board, and that doesn't really give the administration guidance for how to resolve it.
Yeah, I'm
but
not
Christine-
hearing a lot
That's
of-
where,
I'm not
that's my
hearing a lot of
point, is that
consensus.
it's
I'm
kind of
sorry,
like
but
and we're
if I-
putting it into the
Right.
universe.
If I may
Yeah.
jump in a second, I'm confused. We all talk outside or between meetings. Why can't we narrow down our questioning, series of questions and target them for the meeting?
Well, I think this is a little different than, this is not questions, this is direction, right? Like we ask questions, no, but I think,
Well, we have 8 of us and we all have to.
or if we
might have
each
different
send
views.
Tony I think, or maybe the obligation is on each of us to send to Tony what our priorities are.
That's sort of what I'm saying.
Yeah, but so that's I'm saying the action steps that each of us need to take.
Correct. So we have to communicate offline and then either we'll get together after we've agreed on stuff and then present what we discussed in a condensed version and then vote on it and we'll move forward with it. But we'll do it at the next meeting. Karen?
Like I said, for me, the main reason that I had questions was having school start on that Friday. I mean, I don't know if anybody else, if that's the main reason for mostly everybody else. The only question is, can it actually, like, we have to have a discussion as to see if it could be moved at all somewhere, because if not, I mean, Dr. Jones sort of laid out some good points, but still, like, I just thought that there still might be some sort of option here.
I'm with Karen on that. I'd vote for adding just one day in June and getting rid of the Friday in September.
Yeah, you have to add 2 days in June, actually, right?
Wait, so Cody, you're suggesting not to start in August on the Friday.
Yeah, sorry, not to start in August. Yes.
So I'm kind of in the minority on this one, but I'm always in the minority. So it's a comfortable place that I usually sit. I actually don't mind the Friday start date, the Thursday and Friday start date. And here's the way I look at it. And this is from a parent perspective, right? So the Thursday they're starting, it's the 6th and the 9th graders. It's the dry run. And then they go Friday. And let's just face it, they're not doing anything on the first day of school, right? We know that. We know they're not doing anything on the first day and they're not doing anything on the last day. And the first day on that Friday, it's kind of like, okay, we're getting back into the swing of things. Here's where we're going. Then you have your 3-day holiday weekend and then you come back on Tuesday and you're ready to go. That's the way it works. And otherwise, if you're pushing that back, that fake day, sorry, it's what it really is. It's that fake day comes, you're just pushing it out and we're already back. Nobody's taking, a really long vacation anyway at that point in time. I like the Friday start date. I'm all for it.
I am strangely with Karen.
And Karen, I don't usually agree. I agree with Karen on this one too. No, because I think there's educational days earlier in the year to do these things as opposed to bumping them into June. We've all seen the weather gets hot, the concentration is less. They're not quality days, as well as we have the APs. And that's huge. Those 2 days can be really big for those.
And where
students.
is the Greenwich Times when they have 2 Democrats agreeing with the right-wing conservative Republican on the end that sits at the kid table?
Perfect. So we'll push this off until the next meeting. We'll have some so Karen brought up a bunch of other reasons that
No. Sorry, my main reason was just that Friday. The Juneteenth was, we made the decision to be open. And if that's the case, then we were required to have educational programs. We just talked about that. The other thing is a separate issue. It's just it's not whether I vote or not. The only question I had was on that first day.
So we're gonna change the calendar. So Christina, could you, no, we have to make a new motion because we have to change the calendar. If we're we'll leave the calendar. We've decided we want to leave it as it is. So
I think Ms. Costin wants to speak.
I'm sorry, Laura, I didn't see your hand up.
We have to find a way to start either after Labor Day or not on that Friday The number of people that came up to me at our back to school picnic were very angry. And then I went to a barbecue and there were more angry people. And I think.
But you were all together before Labor Day weekend. How nice.
I think Ms. Costin's point, for another bipartisan agreement here, the alliance. I think Ms. Costin's point is why we need to delay this, and let the community chime in.
How about move it up? Even don't start on Friday, start on Thursday. Like, honestly, we used to start earlier on that week. That
We
makes more
did. You
sense.
guys don't remember. Yeah, you could start, a lot of the districts around us, I think, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, started on like Tuesday or Wednesday that week. But then you lose the teachers and you have the facilities issues.
So
So
when we start
here's
on
the peril to what,
after
we
Labor
want our February break. The way the Christmas, New Year's falls, it's a lot of days next year. We want our April break. The days have to come from somewhere. And I think we just have to ultimately pick where are those 2 or 3 magical days, assuming we're gonna have snow days. Are you doing them in August? You're doing them in June, or are you giving up one of your breaks? I think it's pure and simple math.
Well, I think that we're not going to persuade those that have one point of view at this point, and that we're going to have different points of view. So therefore, it's got to come to majority rule. I am going to vote. I'm going to abstain because the community is going to tell me that like they do every year, why do we start before Labor Day? I'm going to have nothing to do with this decision.
No, we can vote in 2 weeks. I just think that we as a board, we just have to say, where do I want those days to come from? And
I was just going to say, when we get to agenda planning, if people are willing, if we're already going to put the textbook on for the budget in November 2nd, if we could do it then, that would be very helpful because it would give us a little of an opportunity to see if there's any movement because
So
there's got to be
is
some.
anyone wanting to call the question to force the vote? No. Okay. So therefore, we will then put it off till the next. So we have to withdraw the motion. Was it me? I might have made the motion. I'm going to withdraw it then. Okay. So that one's now put off. Now the secession discussion. What's going to happen going forward is this. The next meeting, what is it, a retreat we have in 2 weeks? The budget presentation and those 2 things we're adding to it. Right. I will still be chair then. But what happens is myself and Christina do not get seated on the 16th. The new board members elected in will be whoever they may be will be then seated. If given that Karen has at least 1 vote, if she doesn't have 1 vote, then this changes. But if she has 1 vote, that's the popular public on election day. That's right. Then you will be in charge as the secretary. So you will run the election for chair. So what I'm going to do, since that is the case, at this point right now, we're into the agenda plan discussion. Karen, I'm going to hand it off to you to run this discussion.
Okay, yay. I don't know about anybody else, but apparently for agenda planning purposes for our next meeting on November 2nd, we now need to add 2 action items. One would be the textbook approval from tonight, as well as the calendar for next year. And I'd like to make a request because as Joe mentioned, after next meeting, we will be having at least 2 new members of the Board of Education. And with a lot of the changes that would have occurred recently in special education, I think it would be very helpful for us to add an executive session. I know sometimes we do it a little later in the year, but I don't notice an executive session on here to go over our special education. Oh, well, if there's a possibility to talk about it, I don't know. I didn't see it on February 8th. Okay, I didn't see it when I looked last night.
Running the discussion.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I didn't see a hand up.
Thank you.
I'm
Madam
taking minutes
Thank you,
and-
Madam
yeah.
Secretary. While you're talking about February 8th, given our achievement conversation last time, I would argue that might be a good time for a strategic plan update, particularly around hearing like from our Title I schools or other schools in general, but how we're responding to student achievement numbers and what plans we've made.
So you want to add it to February 8th when it's just because it's a back-to-back.
Yeah,
executive
February
sessions.
eighth, because we don't,
I think you
we
should,
only have.
can I make a
executive session.
suggestion? You should wait till your new board is seated. Because it kind of impacts on them. But it's after them. if
No,
they're
but
seated.
let them be part of the discussion about how soon they want that conversation. No?
I think you're discussing because there's certain things in there that would be executive session worthy. That's why he was suggesting adding it there.
I was thinking more because it was mid-year, so it's a good time to have a progress report.
I don't think they're gonna do. All right. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to add to agenda plan going forward? No, no one, no one. Going once, going twice. And I'm going to turn this back over to Joe because I know there's a motion that.
There
his-
is a
his thing he
motion.
likes-
Laura. I will second that one. All in favor, please raise your hand. Is Cody still awake? He's raised his hand. Yes, Cody, well done. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Anthony, thank you. Jonathan, thank you. Everyone, Tony, thank you. Ann, get some sleep.